Dim the lights. Turn on a fan if you're into that soft background hum, and grab a blanket. The scratchier, the better. Tonight, we're peeling back the itchy wool layers of history to uncover a secret that might make your orthopedic mattress feel like a scam. Welcome to the sleep saga of Gareth, 35 years old, professional goat negotiator by day, unwilling chicken footrest by night. He doesn't have blackout curtains or melatonin or even socks, but somehow, Gareth sleeps better than you, and he's not alone. Before we tuck in, please take a moment to like this video, share it with a fellow insomniac, and subscribe. It helps us keep telling these strange, slightly smelly bedtime stories. And don't forget to say to us in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. We love knowing which corner of the world is falling asleep with us, because tomorrow we're heading somewhere darker, weirder, and potentially stickier. Trust me, you'll want to be there. Back to Gareth. His home, a dirt-floored masterpiece of misery. His bed, a straw mattress that crunches, smells faintly of regret, and occasionally twitches, thanks to the bugs who pay no rent. His pillow, a sack filled with grass, rags, and maybe a feather if Frida the chicken's feeling generous. But Gareth, he sleeps. Deeply. It's like a man who fought the elements all day and now just wants to not freeze to death in his sleep. Because in medieval times, sleep wasn't a luxury. It was survival. And tonight, you'll learn how Gareth, the man who shares a mattress with 4 children, 1 goat, and 0 dignity, managed to master the art of peasant slumber. So tuck in and get cozy, just not too comfortable. It's about to get historically uncomfortable. Gareth's bed is not a bed. It's a suggestion. A barely legal sleeping arrangement cobbled together from the softest parts of the barn and the least offensive patches of dirt. And by softest, we mean the places where the goat hasn't peed recently. It's a mattress in name only, a lumpy straw-stuffed sack that crackles every time you shift and occasionally ejects a beetle for dramatic effect. If you're lucky, the beetle leaves. If you're not, it snuggles in. Forget memory foam. Gareth's mattress remembers absolutely nothing, and he has no interest in trying. It flattens under his body like a broken promise and smells faintly like last autumn's regrets. But here's the twist. He sleeps on it. Like a rock. Like the world's itchiest, most sleep-deprived rock. Why? Because medieval peasant sleep wasn't about comfort. It was about prioritizing survival over spinal alignment. Let's break it down. The bed sits low, real low on the floor or a few planks if Gareth's feeling fancy. There's no box spring, no elevation, no sense of pride. Just straw, flattened, dusty, and older than some of Gareth's children. He fluffs it the medieval way, by stomping on it with bare feet or punching it into submission. That's not bedding maintenance, that's an emotional release. His pillow? Oh, it's a work of tragic art. A sack filled with anything not immediately edible. Rags, dried grass, maybe a handful of goose down if the goose lost a fight recently. Sometimes it's just a bundle of frustration wrapped in cloth. You don't lay your head on it, you negotiate with it. And then there are the blankets. Thick wool, heavy as guilt, and somehow it's always a little damp. They smell like last winter, despair, and faintly of sheep who have moved on. But here's where it gets interesting. That heavy weight, it works. Modern science calls it deep pressure stimulation, like a fancy way of saying your blanket bullies you into sleep. The peasants just called it warmth, or not freezing to death. Tomato. Gareth piles those woolly regrets high and lets them press him down into slumber. It's like being hugged by a damp yak. But you know what? It's effective. Now let's talk pajamas. He doesn't have any. In Gareth's world, pajamas are a myth, a bedtime fairy tale told by the wealthy. He sleeps in what he wears to work, dirt, sweat, and all. Unless it's wet, bloody, or on fire, it goes straight to bed with him. So yes, that tunic smells like onions, ash, and self-doubt. But hey, it's warm, and warmth beats vanity every time. Then there's the sleeping arrangement. Gareth does not sleep alone. That concept doesn't exist in his life. Privacy is a 21st century fantasy. In Gareth's house, sleep is a communal event. He shares his straw fortress with his wife, 4 children, a goat with a gas problem, and Frida the chicken, who insists on nesting directly on his feet like a feathery space heater with attitude. It's not romantic, it's not serene, it's loud, it's crowded, it smells like 5 different kinds of unwashed. But here's the thing, it's warm. Gareth and his clan are their own furnace in a world without central heating. Body heat is currency. You don't sleep next to your loved ones because it's cute. You sleep next to them because it's either that or become a popsicle before sunrise. And yes, there are farts. And yes, someone's elbow is always in your spine. And yes, the goat occasionally sneezes directly into your soul. But there's something oddly comforting about it all. Something primal. Something deeply human. You fall asleep knowing you're surrounded by family, animals, and life itself, even if that life just stepped on your face while finding a comfy spot. Still awake? Good, because we haven't even touched on the ambiance. Gareth doesn't need a white noise machine. He lives in one. The night is alive with the sound of livestock shifting, chickens cooing, the wind negotiating with the roof, and that one neighbor who snores like he's summoning an exorcism. It's chaotic. It's rustic. It's oddly rhythmic. This soundscape isn't a disturbance. It's a lullaby. When your brain knows that every creak and groan means we're still alive, you learn to love the noise. It becomes the drumbeat of survival. Modern folks would pay for a white noise app that sounds half this real. Crickets and the distant threat of barn collapse might top the charts. And then there's the darkness. It is an absolute blackout that would make modern blackout curtains blush. No streetlights, no digital glow, just firelight, flickering, dying, mysterious. If the moon's out, it peeks through holes in the thatched roof like a nosy ghost. If not, it's you, the dark, and the hope that your toes make it to morning. So yes, Gareth's bed is terrible by modern standards. It's lumpy, crunchy, drafty, and potentially alive. But it works. Not because it's good, because it has to. Sleep isn't a luxury in Gareth's world, it's a necessity. A reset button slammed down by exhaustion and wrapped in wool. He's not browsing sleep forums. He's not testing pillow firmness levels. He's surviving. When Gareth sleeps, it's not gentle. It's not graceful. It's a full-body collapse into the one place that doesn't require him to work, think, or worry. He snores like a man with nothing left to give and everything to dream about. And in the morning, when the rooster screams like it's been wronged by God himself, Gareth wakes up sore, stiff, and miraculously still alive. And so, dear listener, remember Gareth as you curl into your memory foam mattress tonight with your lavender mist and weighted blanket. Remember the man who sleeps on straw beneath damp wool next to a goat and still manages to wake up with enough energy to shovel manure and raise 4 kids. Not because it's comfortable, but because that's life. And that, my friends, is medieval peasant sleep's strange, scratchy magic. Gareth wakes up with a jolt, not because his alarm went off, there's no such luxury in 1325, but because Frida, his chicken-footed sleep partner, has decided 4:47 a.m. is the perfect time to do her victory lap across his face. It's cold, it's dark, it smells like wet straw and whatever the goat ate last night. Congratulations, he survived the night, again. His joints creak like an old church door, his spine protests every motion, and his first breath in the morning tastes faintly of ash, sweat, and stale turnip. Welcome to medieval mornings where immediate discomfort is the reward for surviving sleep. Gareth rolls over, accidentally elbowing his youngest child in the forehead, stepping on the goat's ear, and narrowly avoiding a pile of something the chicken left behind. He's not mad. He's just awake. Now, the medieval morning routine begins. Not with yoga or a smoothie, but with survival instincts kicking in at full speed. Gareth's floor is quite literally the earth. Dirt, compacted by years of barefoot trampling, interwoven with straw, occasional mold, and the lost dreams of cleanliness. If it rained during the night, and it usually does, the ground is damp. If it didn't, it's dusty enough to choke a camel. Either way, Gareth's bare feet hit the earth with the grace of a man who knows it's too early for optimism. There's no bathroom to stumble into, no warm shower waiting, there is no mirror to avoid. Gareth relieves himself in what can only be described as a wooden bucket of personal failure behind the house. If he's lucky, the turnips from last week haven't haunted it yet. If he's not, the medieval digestive system is a daily gamble. And the worst part, he has to empty it. Into the street. Publicly. With a shout of, Guardiola. A word that sounds cute until you realize it's medieval French for move or be baptized. And that's breakfast prep. He returns inside to the fire, which has died chiefly overnight. There's no central heating, no thermostat, just the residual warmth of bodies and embers. Gareth blows gently on the coals, praying they're still hot enough to coax a flame. If not, It's flint, steel, and enough sparks to qualify for a forest fire if it weren't so wet and miserable. Once he gets a small fire going, he reaches for breakfast. And I use that word generously. There are no eggs, no bacon, no pancakes, no good morning either. What Gareth eats is called pottage, a thick stew that has been slowly brewing for days, sometimes weeks. New ingredients are added when available, but nothing is ever removed. It's less a meal and more an edible timeline. Today's version includes 2 carrots, half a cabbage, 3 unidentifiable root fragments, and a piece of something that might be a mouse or a miracle. The flavor? Not important. The texture? Variable. The heat? Optional. He eats from a shared wooden bowl. No utensils. Just a crude spoon carved from the regrets of a sapling. If he's lucky, the bread that goes with it hasn't fossilized yet. Most likely it has. The loaf is so hard it could double as home defense. It's made of rye, bulked up with whatever filler was available that week. Acorns, sawdust, maybe dirt. Gareth doesn't bite it, he contemplates it, then he soaks it in ale. Yes, ale at breakfast, because the water is, to put it bluntly, lethal. It's filled with bacteria, filth, and possibly the spirits of angry ancestors. So everyone drinks ale, even children. It's weak, warm, and slightly sour. But it won't kill you immediately, which in this world is a win, and all the while the air in Gareth's home is thick with smells. The goat, the people, the fire, the wet wool that nobody has washed since Saint Whatever's Day. There are no scented candles, no diffusers, no escape. But to Gareth, this is home. The scent of survival, the musk of not dying. He inhales it like it's cologne. By now, his children are awake. One is screaming about stepping on a nail, another is using the wall as a urinal. Frida jumped onto the table and pecked someone's forehead. His wife, Ilsa, attempts to corral chaos using only her voice and an old ladle. Gareth looks around, breathes deeply, and does what every good medieval father does. He gets dressed in the same clothes he slept in. He has one outfit. One. A wool tunic that itches in places no man should itch. It's stiff from dried sweat, stained from unmentionable things, and smells like it once spent a week in a pigsty because it did. Underwear? Optional. Soap? Rare. Laundry day? Once per apocalypse. Getting dressed is more ceremonial than practical. It signals the transition from sleeping poorly to working painfully. He slips on his shoes, thin leather slabs with paper's structural integrity. His feet are now exposed to rocks, dung, sharp sticks, and the occasional rat ambush. He ties the laces and prays the mud will hold them together. Now comes the walk. Gareth works in the field, so what else is there? Every step is a challenge. The road isn't a road. It's a suggestion. A swamp masquerading as a path, lined with human waste and animal parts, occasionally blessed by rain and cursed by the feet of the desperate. He trudges through it all with the grace of a man too tired to be disgusted. But here's the thing. Gareth doesn't complain. Not really, because this is life. This is normal. This is his reality. No time for self-pity. No time for existential dread. Work, mouths to feed, and one cracked wooden bucket needs cleaning. And somehow, despite all of this, he laughs. He tells stories. He scratches his lice-infested head with pride. He jokes with his neighbor about the premium pebbles in his bread. He survives, because for Gareth, this isn't hell. This is home. It's hard, filthy, and loud, but it's his. And as the morning sun breaks through the holes in his roof, casting light on the chaos, he smiles. Because he's awake, he's alive. And he knows that tonight, he'll curl back into his crunchy straw bed, wrap himself in regret-scented wool, and do it all over again. That's the rhythm. That's the ritual. That's Gareth. And tomorrow, we follow him into a day that might just kill him, but not before lunch. Gareth's feet are wet. Again. The mud has claimed another pair of rag-threaded shoes, and he can feel nature's cold, squelching embrace between his toes. It's not even mid-morning, and already the day feels like a series of personal attacks. The field is calling, the tools are dull, and the sky looks like it's about to cry on everyone's parade. Again. He trudges down the well-trodden path toward the edge of the village, his back aching, shoulders stiff, and brain still negotiating whether that lump in the pottage was in fact meat or a very determined mushroom. This is farm life in the 14th century. You don't clock in. You simply arrive, limping, exhausted, and hoping today won't involve chasing a runaway pig into a nearby pond. But here's what no one tells you. Gareth's real challenge today isn't the field. It's not the weeds, weather, or even the ongoing turf war with the neighbor's goose. It's fatigue. a bone-deep, soul-hugging exhaustion that doesn't care how many hours you slept last night. Because medieval life isn't just physically demanding, it's emotionally relentless. And sleep, as we've said, it's not a treat. It's a recovery under duress. He reaches the farm and grabs his hoe. The handle is splintered, worn smooth in places, but still somehow manages to stab him in the hand every third swing. The soil beneath him is half frozen, half mud, and entirely unforgiving. But Gareth digs. He clears, he plants, all while the wind howls through the valley like an unpaid bard singing off-key. And through it all, there's one thought echoing in his mind like a medieval mantra: just make it to the fire. Because when the sun sets, and it will, abruptly, like a slap from God, there is no Netflix, no scrolling, no unwinding. There is only fire. The hearth. The one warm corner in a house is designed more for survival than comfort. And Gareth? He lives for that moment. As the day trudges forward, he begins counting the minutes. His stomach growls, but there's no snack break. His tunic sticks to his back like a damp, itchy second skin. And when he stops to wipe the sweat from his brow, all he has is the same sleeve he used to wipe the goat's nose earlier that morning. Glamorous, it is not. By late afternoon, Gareth's hands were blistered and his arms ached, and the sun, ever judgmental, is beginning its descent. He finishes tying off the last row of plants, some barley, some wishful thinking, and shoulders his tools. The walk home is quiet, except for his knees arguing with gravity. Back home, the fire hasn't started yet. That's his job. He kneels by the hearth, blowing on the embers as they owe him money. After a few sparks and a mild existential crisis, flames take hold. The fire crackles, reluctant but alive. It lights up the one-room hut with a flickering glow that makes even mold look cozy. Gareth doesn't just sit, he sinks. Right into the dirt floor beside the fire, arms heavy, back sore, eyes half closed. His wife, Ilsa, hands him a bowl of what might generously be called stew, and he eats it with the quiet determination of a man who knows chewing is optional. The kids are wrestling nearby. The goat is trying to eat someone's tunic. Frida, the chicken, is perched above the door like a sentry with feathers. And yet, this is the good part. This is a golden hour, peasant edition. The fire isn't just heat, it's a symbol. It's the line between we made it and we didn't. It burns with the same stubbornness that keeps Gareth going. It roasts their turnips, dries their boots, and gives their faces a glow that says, we've survived another day. Not thrived and not celebrated, just survived. And in medieval times, that's more than enough. Sometimes Gareth tells stories by the fire, about the moon being a giant eye that watches chickens, about how the stars are just tiny holes poked in the sky by curious angels. His kids listen, wide-eyed until one of them sneezes directly into the stew and ruins the moment. But it's fine. These are the memories they'll forget, and then reinvent when they're older, wiser, and equally dirty. Other times, there are no stories, just the sound of the fire popping and the occasional goat fart. And weirdly, that's perfect. That flickering light, the shadows dancing across the walls, the warmth licking his shins, enough to pull Gareth back from the brink. He doesn't need therapy. He has smoke inhalation and communal warmth. Now let's talk about the mental magic of firelight. In modern terms, it mimics the blue light blocking, dopamine regulating, circadian respecting brilliance that science loves to market in sleep apps. In medieval terms, it's just what we do before the dark eats us. Either way, Gareth's body begins to relax. His breathing slows, his thoughts soften, and that heavy wool blanket of fatigue wraps around him like a smoke-scented hug. The kids start dozing. One by one, they curl up near the fire like puppies. Gareth watches them, amused. He remembers his father doing the same thing, and his father's father, and probably a few more before that, because peasant life doesn't change fast. It lingers, like the smell of turnips and bad decisions. Soon, it's time. Gareth stands slowly, joints popping like kettle corn. He stokes the fire one last time, ensuring the embers survive the night. He lays down his makeshift mattress, shakes out the larger beetles, and repositions the straw for maximum minimal comfort. He peels off his boots, which may or may not still be wet, and climbs into the warmth created by layers of wool, body heat, and sheer exhaustion. Frida joins him. She always does. And Gareth drifts as he lays there, his family snoring in uneven harmony, the fire whispering its last lullaby, the roof creaking like a guilty conscience. Not because he's comfortable, but because he's done. Because survival isn't pretty. it's patient. And when he sleeps, it's not with grace, it's with purpose, with weight. He knows tomorrow will be hard, but tonight he has the fire. And sometimes that's enough. Gareth dreams of smells, not sights, not sounds, but smells. Sharp ones, strange ones, smells that linger, smells that tell stories. The scent of goat breath, smoke-logged wool, and old onion stew are the bedtime lullabies of a medieval peasant. And tonight, his dreams are particularly vivid, probably because Frida the chicken has somehow wedged herself under his neck like a feathery heating pad that clucks in her sleep. But let's not romanticize it. Medieval nights are brutal. Cold drafts sneak through cracks in the wall like judgmental ghosts. Now reduced to glowing embers, the fire offers just enough light to make the shadows look threatening. And the air? It's thick, partially from the family's collective breath, partially from the chamber pot they forgot to empty before bed. That's not just a mistake, that's a chemical weapon. Still, Gareth sleeps. Because what choice does he have? This isn't about sleep hygiene, it's about survival conditioning. His body is trained to fall into unconsciousness the moment it gets horizontal. That's what happens when you spend the day fighting with rocks disguised as farmland and eating soup that may or may not have contained a stick. And what's that smell now? Ah, yes, the signature scent of medieval mattress marinated in livestock ambiance. There's no Febreze, no lavender oil, no sweet smell of fresh cotton sheets. Gareth has a blend of ash, sweat, stale barley beer, and something suspiciously fungal growing in the corner. But it works, because for Gareth and millions like him, scent is memory. The smoky tang of the hearth means safety. The earthy musk of wool blankets means warmth. Even the faint reek of old stew crusted in the pot beside the fire, that's nourishment. Familiarity. Home. Scientists today call it olfactory conditioning. In the 14th century, Gareth called it Tuesday. His brain has been trained to relax under these exact conditions. When the goat's feet shuffle near the wall and the rooster lets out a pre-dawn sigh, Gareth knows, deep in his sleep-fogged bones, that everything is okay. No raiders, no fire, no plague, yet. Now, let's talk strategy. See, the magic of peasant sleep isn't just about being exhausted, it's about ritual. Gareth doesn't just collapse at night, he prepares. Subconsciously, perhaps, but consistently. The same steps every evening. Check the fire, fill the water jug, tell the kids to stop wrestling the goat, scratch that one itch, either a bug bite or a mild curse. Then he sits, just sits, by the fire, silent, watching flames dance like ancient storytellers with too much flair. No distractions, no notifications, just the hypnotic flicker of light on smoke-stained walls and the sound of everyone slowly falling asleep around him. The fire doesn't just warm Gareth's body, it quiets his mind. By the time he lays down, his body is already giving up. His breath slows, his thoughts get heavy, and when he finally pulls that smelly wool blanket over himself and curls into a shape that screams ergonomically defeated, it's not comfort that drags him under. It's rhythm, repetition, familiarity. There's no panic if Gareth wakes up in the middle of the night. It's expected. Welcome to the world of two sleeps. Most medieval folks didn't sleep straight through the night, Gareth included. There's first sleep, a few solid hours of unconsciousness, and then a period of wakefulness. Sometimes it's an hour, sometimes two. During that time, Gareth doesn't panic. He doesn't reach for a glowing rectangle to check Instagram. He doesn't Google, "Why am I awake at 2:13 a.m. again?" He exists. Some nights, he stares into the fire. Other nights, he whispers with Ilsa about turnip prices or whether the neighbor's cow is plotting something. Sometimes they do medieval cardio, which we won't detail here because this is still a bedtime story. And then just like that, the second sleep arrives. Second, sleep is softer. It's deeper. The kind of sleep that wraps around your ribs like a warm fog makes you forget that your pillow is full of hay and regret. Now, back to the scents. By early morning, the room is a stew of humanity, not the emotional kind. The literal, nose-burning, why is there a sock in the pot kind. The fire is little more than a glow. The air is damp. Someone farted and didn't claim it. Gareth stirs. It's not the rooster this time. It's his body clock. Because even if there are no watches, no alarms, and no Google Calendar notifications, Gareth's internal rhythm is sharper than a bishop's dagger. He wakes slowly, blinking into the gloom, counting the smells. Sweat, goat, smoke, onion, wet wool, chicken breath, Everything's in place. He shifts under the covers, careful not to wake the baby, less careful about waking the goat. His legs tangle with at least two children, and one small mystery lump might be a sock or a potato. He doesn't care. He's alive, and that, in this time, is a miracle. To sleep, to dream, to wake. All without freezing, starving, or being trampled by livestock. Gareth takes a breath that feels like chewing the air, scratches his beard, and prepares for another day of breaking rocks, dodging dysentery, and negotiating with angry geese. But first, he stretches. A long, slow stretch that cracks every joint like a medieval percussion instrument. His back pops, his knees creak, his toes try to remember what blood flow feels like. He sits up, rubbing his face, then immediately regrets it when he realizes someone spilled porridge on the pillow last night. And yet, he smiles. Because sleep in this world isn't pretty. It's gritty. It's messy. It smells like hard work and harder beds, but it's real. It's earned. It's sacred. Gareth may sleep on straw beneath a roof that leaks hope, surrounded by chaos, but he sleeps deeply. Without pills, without apps, without even a mattress that tries. And tonight, he'll do it all again. Same smells, same fire, same goat. And honestly, it's beautiful. Gareth stands slowly, his knees giving a familiar creak like old floorboards threatening mutiny. Morning has come, not with grace or bird song, but with a low groan from the rafters and the unmistakable sound of someone stepping directly into the chamber pot. Again, it's little Edwin this time, and Gareth doesn't even flinch. That's how mornings go in a medieval peasant household. You wake up in chaos, breathe through your mouth, and hope the chicken doesn't try to peck your toes. The fire has dwindled to a sullen pile of gray ash. The hearth, which was the beating heart of the home hours ago, is now a barely warm puddle of soot and broken dreams. Gareth moves toward it, grabbing a chunk of half-charred wood and giving it a few tentative blows. No sparks, nothing. He mutters between a prayer and a curse, then reaches for the flint and steel, because the fire could never go out in this house. Ever. It's more than warmth, it's survival. Without it, you can't cook, can't boil water, can't scare off the creeping chill that stalks your bones. It's the line between comfort and calamity. Gareth knows this, like he knows the sound of a goat chewing his only good tunic. Intimately, begrudgingly, constantly. He strikes the flint, once, twice. Sparks fly, missing the kindling entirely. Frida clucks judgmentally from her perch on a ceiling beam. On the fifth try, something catches. A faint glow, a curl of smoke. Gareth exhales in relief. Fire lives another day. The kids begin to stir, stretching at various angles that only children and cats can achieve. Ilsa's already feeding the baby with one hand while sweeping up the straw with the other. No one speaks much. Words are rationed in the morning. Energy is saved for bigger challenges, like breakfast. Ah, breakfast. A concept that, in Gareth's world, is more obligation than nourishment. There's no smell of sizzling bacon, no crack of eggs on a hot skillet, no stack of pancakes dripping with syrup. There's a pot, a blackened, bottom-burnt ancient cauldron that's seen things. Inside, the same pottage from last night and the night before, possibly the night before that. It is eternal. It is inevitable. It is breakfast. Gareth stirs the pot slowly, watching as chunks of indeterminate root swirl lazily like survivors in a sea of starch. He scoops a portion into a wooden bowl and hands it to Ilsa, then one to each child. He eats last, always. It's not martyrdom. It's efficiency. If something's spoiled, it better be him than the baby. There's bread, too. Or what used to be bread. A thick slab of rye and regret, dense enough to injure someone if thrown with intent. Gareth takes a bite, pauses, then dips it into the pottage to soften it. It doesn't. He chews anyway, jaw moving with the effort of a man filing paperwork with his teeth. Then comes the drink. Not tea, not water. Ale. Warm, flat, weak ale. Because of the water wants you dead. It's a breeding ground for parasites, floating particles of despair, and the occasional frog. So you brew beer, not to party, but to survive. Even the kids get their morning sip. Chasing down the bread without lodging it in your throat permanently is not enough. And yet, this moment, this ritual of sludge and sips, is oddly comforting. It's routine, predictable. Predictability is a blessing in a world where weather can kill you and pigs can maul you. But breakfast isn't a leisurely event. It's transactional. You eat, you move. No sitting around chatting about feelings. Gareth finishes the last of his ale, wipes his mouth with a sleeve that's done too much, and prepares for the real work, staying warm. See, Medieval cold isn't like modern cold. It doesn't tap you gently on the shoulder and whisper, maybe wear a jacket. It punches you in the chest, steals your breath, and gnaws at your extremities like a hungry raccoon. The house doesn't stop it. The roof laughs at insulation. The walls, made of sticks, mud, and prayers, let the wind in like an uninvited guest who eats all the cheese. So Gareth layers up. Tunic, cloak, another tunic. Maybe a scarf if the rats haven't chewed through it. He resembles a medieval onion, layered, pungent, and hard to peel. His boots are still damp from yesterday. He puts them on anyway. Outside, the frost has claimed the ground. The grass crunches underfoot like thin ice over failure. Gareth steps carefully, avoiding the slickest patches. He's already seen too many neighbors go down hard, knees buckling, backs snapping, curses echoing. Winter is not subtle here. It takes breaks and rarely gives back. He walks to the woodpile or what's left of it. Just a few gnarled pieces, damp and stubborn. He carries them in, feeds them to the fire, and watches as they hiss and sputter. The flames flicker weakly, barely licking the sides of the hearth. It's not enough. Not nearly. Back inside, the kids huddle together under one blanket. They play a game called Pretend We're Warm. Ilsa rubs her hands together, blowing into them, flexing her fingers. Gareth reaches for the walls. Gaps everywhere. He stuffs them with straws, rags, anything. He knows it won't last, but he does it anyway. He takes ashes from the hearth, mixes them with water, and smears the slurry over the coldest parts of the wall. It's crude insulation, messy, smoky, semi-effective. It buys them a few hours, maybe. Then it's back to the fire, feeding it and watching it. I'm praying it doesn't die while they sleep, because if it does, they might too. The hearth becomes their sun. They orbit it. Eat near it, sleep beside it, even discipline the kids next to it. Step away from the fire is the medieval equivalent of a timeout. Every ember matters. Every log is a treasure. Gareth once traded a spare cloak for 2 sticks of dry wood, the best deal he ever made. By midday, the cold loosens its grip slightly. Gareth opens the door to let in light, but not too much. Sunlight's rare, warmth is rarer. He savors it. Let it wash over his cracked hands and windburned face, then shuts the door again. Just enough, not too much. Everything in this life is balanced, and that's what today is. A dance between fire and frost, between hunger and enough, between barely awake and barely surviving. But Gareth, he keeps moving, keeps tending. He keeps waking up to mornings like this and saying, all right then, let's try again. Because he has to. Because that's life. And because tonight when the fire glows and the house smells like smoke, onions, and someone's foot again, Gareth will fall asleep under that same scratchy wool next to that same judgmental chicken, with a heart that somehow still knows peace, even if his toes don't. The fire flickers low, whispering in tired pops and faint crackles. Gareth leans in, squinting at the coals like he's trying to read the future in them. Spoiler alert, it's probably damp and painful. He adds a final chunk of wood, the last dry one for the week, and watches it hiss, resisting ignition like a stubborn mule. He sighs, stretches his back, and limps away from the hearth like a man 80 years older than he is. Because that's what the cold does. It ages you. Not in years, but in joints, in spirit. Your breath turns to fog before your face, and your fingers go numb while tying your boots. And Gareth, he feels it. Every step, every morning, every evening, when his bones feel like they're grinding against each other to produce heat. And here's the thing. The fire was never enough. Not truly. Not when your home is made from a blend of sticks, mud, and a surprisingly enthusiastic application of animal dung. It's insulation if you squint and have never felt real insulation. But that's not the worst part. No, the worst part is what the cold doesn't just take. It replaces. It replaces comfort with caution, replaces sleep with alertness. It replaces dreams with calculation. Where to sleep, how to block the wind, and whether there's enough straw between you and the floor to not wake up with frostbite in your kidneys. And so begins the nightly routine. Gareth strolls around the single-room home, checking the walls for new gaps. A breeze kisses his ankle. There's a hole. Another. He stuffs it with hay, then another, plugged with a wad of old cloth that smells like it's seen better decades. The roof creaks. He doesn't look up. What's he gonna do? Fix it with hope? The fire's still burning. Barely. But it's alive. In this world, it is good enough. Ilsa hands him a bowl of something that may have once been soup. It's hot. That's the selling point. Not the taste, not the texture, just the temperature. Gareth drinks it like medicine, ignoring the unidentifiable chunk that tries to choke him on the way down. He's thankful. Always thankful, even when dinner fights back. The kids are bundled in the corner, 3 layers of wool, 1 goat, 2 children, and something that might be a dog, but no one's asked. They look like a medieval stew of limbs and dreams. Gareth smiles. Despite everything, they're warm. That's the victory. That's the point. And now comes bedtime. Not just any bedtime, the nightly battle against the elements disguised as rest. He lays out the bedding, straw mat, rough wool blanket, second rougher wool blanket, and a final piece of burlap that once had dignity and has since given up. He removes his boots. They slosh, damp again. He squeezes out what he can and places them by the fire, not to dry, but to not freeze into wearable tombstones overnight. Then he removes his tunic, or rather, peels it. The fabric clings like a needy ex, stiff and sour from sweat, frost, and the burden of existence. He doesn't flinch. He's done this before. He'll do it again tomorrow. Gareth lowers himself onto the straw like an aging oak collapsing under its weight. It crackles. Twigs jab him in sensitive places. One end is damp. He doesn't investigate. That way lies madness. Ilsa joins him, pulling the covers tight. The kids rustle in their corner, settling in like squirrels nesting in old blankets. Frida the chicken, as usual, hops onto Gareth's chest like a smug paperweight. He lets her stay. Warmth is warmth. And here's where it gets real. Sleep doesn't come easy anymore, not like it used to be. Not when Gareth was younger, tougher, more able to ignore the howling wind, and his pillow smelled like a boiled sock. Now, sleep is something he must chase, not fall into. He lies there, staring into the flickering shadows on the ceiling. Each creak of wood and hiss of the wind outside feel personal. He shifts like the house is alive and deeply annoyed with everyone inside. The straw shifts louder. Ilsa elbows him in the ribs on accident. The baby sneezes, Frida clucks, the wind howls again, and yet this is normal. This is night. Gareth closes his eyes, breathing slowly, sinking his breath with the faint, dying rhythm of the hearth. He counts. Not sheep, they're outside, freezing. He counts breaths, heartbeats, times he's patched that same hole by the door, anything to distract from the chill working its way up from the floor like a slow, cold snake. And then, just before the edge of sleep, a noise. Not the normal ones, not a baby, not the goat, something different. His eyes snap open, his ears tune in. Silence, but not the comforting kind, the dangerous kind. The type of silence where the fire has gone out and something outside is moving. He sits up, careful not to wake anyone, moves toward the fire. Just ash now, no glow, no light. The warmth in the room drops like a stone. His breath clouds in the air. He listens again, a rustle outside, leaves. Maybe footsteps. He grabs the poker, the closest thing to a weapon, steps quietly to the door. His bare feet touch the dirt floor, cold and familiar, another sound. Closer. He opens the door with a crack. Nothing. Just black. Wind. A tree branch scratches against the house's side like it's trying to write a warning. Gareth exhales. Just nature. Just paranoia. Just night. He returns to the fire and starts the long process of relighting it. Again, flint, steel, hope, eventually a spark, a flame, a glow. Light returns to the room, so does the warmth, so does sleep. He crawls back to bed and wraps himself in wool, straw, and exhaustion. Ilsa stirs, Frida squawks softly, and Gareth? He finally lets go. Not because it's comfortable, but because it's necessary. That's the thing about nights like these. They don't wait for your permission. They just come, they just freeze, they take. And you adapt, you light fires, you plug holes, you sleep like a soldier in a blanket trench. Because in Gareth's world, rest isn't rest, it's resilience. And tomorrow, when the sun rises through cracks in the thatch, Gareth will wake. Sore, cold, but still breathing. And that, once again, will be enough. Morning comes not with birdsong or golden rays, but with the unmistakable sound of something dripping onto Gareth's forehead. Plip. 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 He opens one eye and stares up at the roof where condensation has begun its slow, inevitable betrayal. A droplet of water hangs like a tiny executioner's blade, then releases itself with perfect cold timing, smacking him square between the eyes. He doesn't flinch. This is the 8th day in a row. It's just another reminder that his ceiling, like his back, is mostly decorative now. He groans, rolls onto his side, and winces as a sharp piece of straw lodges itself into his thigh like a medieval acupuncture session. Gareth sighs. Stretching out on the mat of misery he dares to call a mattress. The straw, matted with time, sweat, and a healthy dose of unidentified funk, shifts beneath him like it's trying to escape. And honestly, who could blame it? Straw bedding, if you're unfamiliar, is not the soft golden fluff you see in storybooks. No, this stuff is crunchy, unpredictable, and violently aggressive after a few weeks of use. And Gareth has seen seasons. Plural. It smells like a barn threw up. It squeaks when you breathe too hard. Sometimes it writhes, which is never good because straw isn't supposed to have movement unless something else is living in it, and something usually is. He pats it gingerly, checking for surprises. No beetles this time. Just a few wayward seeds and a tuft of Frida's feathers. She's already awake, perched proudly at the foot of the bedding, staring at him like she's considering unionizing. Gareth meets her eyes and nods once. Mutual respect among creatures sleeping in the trenches. The rest of the family is still asleep. Ilsa is curled tightly under a blanket that smells like smoked regret. The children form a tangled pile of limbs and matted hair, snoring in harmony with the goat, who appears to be using one of them as a pillow. Gareth slowly rises, careful not to wake the domestic ecosystem. He stands, or tries to. His back pops like cheap firewood, and his knees remind him that no amount of positive thinking can undo 20 years of sleeping on what is essentially a compost pile, marinated in livestock. He groans again, this time involuntarily, and shuffles toward the fire. It's dead. Of course, the embers are cold, lazy ash now. He curses under his breath, grabs the flint, and gets to work. Flint. Steel. Hope. After a few failed strikes and a full minute of breathing like a dragon with asthma, a small flame curls to life. Gareth feeds it slowly, lovingly, with twigs and scraps of dried dung. Yes, dung. Because in this house, cow pies are a heating source, not an insult. The fire grows, illuminating the room in flickering orange. Shadows stretch across the walls like tired ghosts. The warmth is faint, but enough. Gareth sits beside it, pulling the blanket tighter around his shoulders. Not for comfort, for survival. Because even though the sun is technically up, warmth is a theory. And the floor? The floor is a medieval betrayal. Dirt, cold, hard, uneven dirt. It absorbs heat like it's holding a grudge and radiates it back at half the speed of continental drift. Gareth's feet, bare, bruised, and emotionally distant, curl against the chill as if trying to retreat into his own ankles. There's straw scattered here and there like sad confetti from a party no one enjoyed. He grabs a handful and stuffs it under the fire's edge, trying to keep the heat from vanishing into the earth's miserable embrace. And this is the truth most folks forget. Medieval floors were never just floors. They were battlegrounds. They hosted rats, bugs, mysterious puddles, and on one memorable occasion, a chicken egg that had gone rogue. There was no tiling, no wood, just compacted mud, time, and tears. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was how alive it felt. During the warmer months, the floor was a living organism. Things burrowed, things skittered. Gareth once saw something with too many legs disappear into a crack near the fire and made a conscious decision to never, ever think about it again. In winter, it was merciless, a glacier in disguise. You could light 3 fires, wrap yourself in every animal pelt available, and still feel the chill seeping into your bones like unpaid debt. Gareth swears the cold comes up through the floor just to mock him. It doesn't just touch your skin. It whispers directly into your soul. You thought you'd be warm this morning? Cute. He walks across it with the hesitancy of a man navigating a minefield of both temperature and texture. Every few steps, he stubs a toe on something hard. Possibly a rock, possibly a long-forgotten tool, possibly the skeletal remains of hope. And yet, this floor is home. It's where Gareth's children learned to crawl, where Ilsa gave birth to little Edda, screaming through the night while Gareth boiled water and tried not to cry into it. It's where meals are eaten, arguments are held, jokes are told, where Frida once laid an egg directly onto his foot during supper. This floor, treacherous, cold, unforgiving, is where life happens, so he tolerates it, works around it, piles old sacks, straw mats, and anything vaguely cloth-like into a padded path from bedding to fire. It's not much, but it saves his arches. Eventually, the others wake. Ilsa groans her way into consciousness. The kids start whining about the cold. Gareth hands out bowls of lukewarm stew without speaking. No one talks much in the morning. It's not personal. It's just survival protocol. The fire crackles a bit louder now. The room warms a hair. Gareth leans back, exhales, and rests his hands on his knees. The dirt presses against his soles. The straw crinkles. The goat sneezes. And Gareth, peasant, husband, father, unintentional bedbug landlord, smiles faintly. Because in this fragile moment, in this barely warm room with its hostile floor and judgmental chicken, he feels something rare. Peace. Not comfort. Not luxury. Just the deep, quiet satisfaction of having made it through another night, of waking up alive, of keeping the fire, the family, and the floor from falling apart. Just barely. And in this world, that's enough. Gareth's hands are covered in soot. Again, he doesn't mind. At this point, the black smudges feel more like a second skin than a stain. It's mid-morning now, or at least what passes for mid-morning when there are no clocks, just the angle of sunlight slinking through a crack in the roof and landing directly on the goat's butt. A natural sundial. Unreliable, but loyal. He sits beside the hearth, rolling the edge of his tunic between two fingers, watching the fire with a veteran's stare. Not with awe, not even with interest, with strategy. Because in this life, fire isn't romantic. It's not ambiance, it's math. You feed it, or it dies. You manage it, or you freeze. There's no third option. Ilsa moves past him, hair tied back with a piece of frayed cloth, balancing a pot of something that smells like onions in defiance. The kids are outside, yelling about something. A beetle fight, maybe. Or someone's turn with the goat. Either way, Gareth doesn't ask. Outside problems are future Gareth's burden. He's got enough to deal with inside. Because today, the fire's not behaving. It's burning weird. Slow, reluctant, like it resents being woken up. Gareth leans in, pokes it gently, and it retaliates with a puff of smoke that hits him directly in the face. He coughs, waves it away, and mutters a few medieval words that translate loosely to, "This fire's mother is a chicken." And yet, he's grateful for it, because this hearth, this black-stained, crack-riddled, ash-caked pit, is the only real luxury in Gareth's life. It's where stew is made, where bread is dried until it's legally a weapon, where the family gathers when the wind gets serious about entering the house. It's also where everything starts and ends. You wake up by it. You eat by it. You tell stories, bury secrets, and dry your only pair of socks by it. The hearth isn't just a fireplace. It's a boundary, a thin, glowing line between surviving and not. And right now, it needs more fuel. Gareth stands, stretching his back like he's unfolding a deck chair that's been left in the rain. He grabs the small hatchet, not sharp, not balanced, but still proud, and heads outside. The door creaks. The cold slaps him in the face like it knows his name. Outside, the frost has painted everything in shades of silence. The ground crunches. His breath trails behind him like a bad omen. He heads for the woodpile, or what's left of it. Just a few sad logs, a pile of damp sticks, and something that might have been a chair in a past life. He kneels, picks up a piece of wood, and brings the hatchet down. It bounces. Of course, medieval hatchets are not precision tools. They're more like arguments with a handle. He tries again. This time, the wood splits. Success. Minor, but sweet. He gathers what he can, arms full, fingers already stiff from cold, and heads back. Inside, the fire accepts his offering, crackles approvingly. A small win. Ilsa passes him a piece of bread so hard it could star in its own night tale. He gnaws at it while feeding the fire, the rhythm of his day set to the sound of popping wood and occasional child-related screaming. Then a shift. Not outside, not in the weather, inside, in the air. It's warmer now, slightly. The fire has grown bold, licking higher, casting shadows that dance across the dirt walls like ghosts trying to remember how to waltz. Gareth watches it with narrowed eyes. He doesn't trust warmth. Not really, because he knows how quickly it can be taken. The thatch roof above him lets out a low groan. Not the creak of age, something different, something heavy. He tilts his head, listens. The fire snaps loudly in response. A drop of water hits his cheek, then another. He looks up. The roof is sweating. No, not sweating, leaking. The frost outside has begun to melt. Not because of the weather, but because of the fire's heat crawling up the walls, slipping into the rafters, waking the thatch from its frozen slumber. And suddenly, Gareth is on his feet. He grabs a bucket, puts it under the worst spot, then another. The family has exactly 3 good buckets and 2 questionable ones, all currently in use for water slop or emergency goat incidents. He improvises with a bowl, then a ladle. Frida clucks in confusion as he moves her perch. Ilsa rushes in, eyes wide. Is it the roof again? Gareth doesn't answer. He's already climbing onto the stool, poking at the rafters, fingers brushing against cold, wet straw, shifting gently, and then the ceiling sags. Not a collapse, not yet, but it's close. He steps down, slowly, face pale. We'll need to patch it, he says, breath fogging in front of him. Before night. Ilsa nods, already pulling the canvas sheet from the corner. It's got holes. Everything has holes, but it's better than open air. The rest of the day is spent in triage. Gareth climbs the rafters, balancing on beams that wobble like medieval Jenga. He stuffs dry straw into holes, smears clay over cracks, nails canvas into place with more desperation than skill. Every step sends down flakes of old soot. Every hammer blow feels like a prayer, and by sunset, it holds. Barely. The fire crackles. The family gathers. Steam rises from the stew pot, thick and comforting. The leak has slowed, not stopped, but Gareth will take that. He leans back, eyes closing, as the room glows orange and soft and briefly peaceful. He knows it won't last. That tomorrow the wind might tear down the patchwork roof, or the fire might die early, that the floor might freeze, that a rat might chew through the goat's leash again. But tonight the fire burns, the roof mostly holds, and the family is together, warm enough to pretend they're not cold. And for Gareth, just for now, that's everything. The fire is low again. Gareth knows that sound, the soft hiss of dying embers, the faint crackle of a flame too tired to fight. It's like the fire is whispering, I'm trying, okay? He throws on a few more sticks, most of them damp, and watches as the flames attempt a comeback like a medieval underdog with asthma. The roof hasn't collapsed yet, which is the good news. The bad news? The air smells like damp straw, goat hair, and the bitter undertone of stressed sweat. It's thick inside the hut, the kind of thick that sticks to your teeth. Gareth doesn't even bother wrinkling his nose anymore. What's the point? He's been marinated in this scent since before breakfast. He adjusts the canvas patch over the worst leak. It's holding, technically. Water drips from the corners in a rhythm that's almost musical if you're into very sad percussion. The buckets catch most of it. The rest? Well, let's just say the dirt floor is now experimenting with mud as a lifestyle choice. But Gareth's not thinking about the roof anymore. Not really. He's thinking about the sky. See, earlier that day, a neighbor passed by, old Merrick, half blind and fully annoying, and said the clouds looked angry. Gareth hadn't looked up at the time, too busy preventing a minor flood in his ceiling. But now, sitting here, fire barely breathing, kids snoring softly in a pile of limbs and blanket scraps, he lets himself wonder, what if Merrick's right? He steps outside. It's cold. Instantly, violently cold. The kind of cold that grabs your face and screams in your ears. The air is sharp enough to cut bread. The wind bites at his cheeks like a disapproving mother-in-law. Gareth squints up at the sky. Yep, Merrick was right. The clouds are heavy, bloated with menace, a thick gray ceiling that promises one thing, snow. Not the cute kind. Not the flirty little flurries that dance on your coat and melt into poetry. This is survival snow, the kind that falls fast, hits hard, and overstays its welcome. He ducks back inside. Ilsa sees the look on his face and doesn't ask. She just grabs the extra sacks and starts stuffing them into window gaps. Gareth joins her. They work quietly, methodically. A dance rehearsed too many times. Gareth checks the firewood stash. It's tragic. 4 decent logs, some damp twigs, and one very angry splinter that already bit his thumb. He considers the options. There aren't many. Burn the last logs now for comfort, or save them for the coldest hour when dawn is still a rumor. He chooses discomfort. The logs stay stacked. Instead, he kneels by the fire and coaxes the embers like a desperate therapist. A little breath, a little ash, a silent plea to the gods of combustion. The fire answers, weakly, but it answers. Outside, the wind begins to wail. It doesn't knock politely, it screams. Through the cracks in the wall, through the gaps in the thatch, through the holes they thought they'd patched. It's not just cold, it's personal. Inside, the family huddles. The kids are awake now, instinctively drawn closer to the hearth like moths that know better. Ilsa pulls them in, wrapping everyone in blankets, cloaks, and leftover laundry that smells like last month's onions. Frida the chicken nestles into Gareth's lap without asking. She knows. Everyone knows. Because this is the kind of night that tests people, not with drama, not with fire or battle, with endurance. The kind where hours stretch, where time slows down like it's frozen too, where Your breath fogs in front of your face, and you try not to shiver too loud because the noise might wake the baby, or worse, remind your body that it still has toes. Gareth doesn't sleep. He sits by the fire all night, feeds it a stick every hour, watches the wind draw shadow puppets on the walls, listens for the cracking groan of ice in the roof beams. His eyes burn, his legs ache, but he doesn't move, because if he lets the fire die, even for a moment, the cold wins, and he won't let that happen. At some point, Ilsa stirs, offers to take a shift. Gareth shakes his head, not out of pride, out of practicality. She needs rest. The kids need her sharper tomorrow. He can manage a few more hours of sitting on the world's coldest stool. Then comes the snow. It arrives like a whisper. At first, just a soft hiss against the roof. Then louder, heavier, like the sky has decided to dump its guilt all at once. The roof groans again. Gareth looks up, holds his breath. It holds. He feeds the fire, adjusts the canvas, moves one of the buckets. Drips are increasing. The snow is melting through the thatch like a betrayal in slow motion. But still, no collapse. And when morning finally breaks, barely, faintly, reluctantly, it finds Gareth still awake, still sitting by the fire, still holding the line. The wind is calmed, the snow has stopped, the roof is sagging, but standing. The floor is soaked, but solid. The children somehow are still asleep, tiny steam engines under layers of wool. Ilsa opens her eyes, sees Gareth, and gives him a look that says everything. "Thank you, you idiot. You did it again." He nods once, stiffly, then leans back, just for a second, just to rest his eyes. And in that second, just before the goat headbutts the door open and lets in a fresh gust of winter, Gareth smiles, because they made it. Not comfortably, not cleanly, but completely. Another night, another fire, another storm survived. And in this life, that's not a small thing. It's everything. The morning light filters through the gaps in the thatched roof, casting a soft glow on the dirt floor of Gareth's humble dwelling. The fire, which had been kept alive through the night, now flickers weakly, its embers glowing faintly as they struggle to provide warmth. Gareth stirs from his slumber, his joints aching from the cold and the hard floor beneath him. He rises slowly, careful not to disturb Ilsa and the children, who remain huddled together under a patchwork of blankets and furs. Stepping outside, Gareth is met with a crisp breeze that carries the scent of damp earth and wood smoke. The village is quiet, save for the distant clucking of chickens and the occasional bark of a dog. He takes a moment to stretch, his muscles protesting after a night spent on the unforgiving floor. The sky above is a pale gray, hinting at the possibility of rain later in the day. Returning inside, Gareth stokes the fire, adding a few pieces of kindling to coax the flames back to life. The warmth is a welcome relief, and he holds his hands close to the fire, savoring the heat. Ilsa begins to stir, her eyes blinking open as she adjusts to the morning light. She offers Gareth a tired smile before rising to prepare the morning meal. Breakfast is simple: a coarse loaf of bread, a wedge of cheese, and a small pot of porridge made from barley and oats. The children wake and gather around the table, their faces still flushed from sleep. They eat quickly, knowing that the day's work awaits them. After the meal, Gareth and Ilsa divide the day's tasks. Gareth will tend to the fields, checking on the crops and repairing any damage caused by the recent storm. Ilsa will remain at home, caring for the younger children and managing the household chores. The older children are assigned their own duties, gathering firewood, fetching water from the well, and assisting with the animals. As Gareth steps into the fields, he surveys the damage. The storm has left its mark. Branches litter the ground, and some of the crops have been flattened by the wind and rain. He sets to work, using a wooden rake to clear the debris and gently propping up the damaged plants. The sun begins to rise higher in the sky, its warmth slowly drying the damp earth. Back at the house, Ilsa tends to the fire, ensuring it remains steady for cooking and warmth. She kneads dough for the next day's bread, her hands moving rhythmically as she works. The younger children play nearby, their laughter bringing a sense of normalcy to the morning. Ilsa pauses occasionally to check on them, her eyes filled with both love and concern. By midday, Gareth returns home, his clothes damp with sweat and dirt. Ilsa greets him with a bowl of stew, its aroma filling the small space. They eat together, sharing news of the morning's events and discussing the tasks that remain. The children listen attentively, their curiosity piqued by tales of the outside world. The afternoon is spent in continued labor. Gareth repairs a section of the fence that has been damaged, while Ilsa tends to the garden, pulling weeds and checking on the vegetables. The children assist where they can, their youthful energy a valuable asset. As the sun begins to set, the family gathers once more, sharing a simple meal and reflecting on the day's accomplishments. As night falls, the fire is stoked once more, its glow casting dancing shadows on the walls. The family settles in for the night, huddled together for warmth and comfort. Gareth gazes into the flames, his thoughts drifting to the days ahead and the challenges they may bring. But for now, he is content, surrounded by those he loves and the simple comforts of home. In the quiet of the night, as the fire crackles softly and the wind whispers outside, Gareth allows himself a moment of peace. The day's labors have been hard, but they have also been fulfilling. And as he drifts off to sleep, he knows that tomorrow will bring new challenges, but also new opportunities for resilience, love, and hope. Gareth didn't hear the storm coming. It wasn't loud. It wasn't the type that arrives with thunderous warning or dramatic flashes of lightning. No, this one came quietly, creeping in like a thief, wrapping its icy fingers around the thatch roof and whispering threats through the cracks in the wall. It was already deep into the night when he noticed. The kind of night where even the fire was too tired to protest, burning low and sulky in the hearth. He had dozed off, sitting upright, back against the wall, a child curled against each side, and Frida the chicken awkwardly perched on his knee like some sort of feathery, judgmental lapdog. Ilsa was stretched out just a few feet away, cradling the baby, one arm flung protectively over the bundle like a shield made of exhaustion. For a moment, everything was still. Then it happened. A gust. Not a strong one, but enough. Enough to nudge open the door just a crack and invite the storm in. A flurry of snowflakes swirled into the room, silent but bold, landing on Gareth's face like tiny messengers from an angry sky. He blinked awake, groggy, confused, his brain still somewhere in the dream, where bread was soft and the floor was dry. He stood up fast, too fast, and nearly tripped over the goat, who had somehow wandered indoors again without permission or purpose. Gareth shuffled to the door and pushed it shut, hard, muttering curses that would make the local priest shiver harder than the wind outside. But the damage was done. The room, once barely warm, was now cold in that specific, hopeless way. The kind of cold that doesn't just hit your skin, it finds your spine, climbs it like a ladder and sets up permanent residence behind your ribs. He turned to the fire. Just embers. He dropped to his knees, grabbed the flint and steel. Strike. Spark. Nothing. Again. Finally. A glow. A curl of orange, a breath of life. And that's when the roof decided to join the betrayal. There was a sound, soft, almost apologetic, a groan, a sigh, and then drip. 1, 2, 3. A slow rhythm of leaks, water, melting from snow piled on the roof, began slipping through the thatch, landing with maddening precision directly onto the only dry part of the floor. Gareth didn't panic. Not yet. This wasn't the first time the roof had flirted with collapse. He moved quietly, grabbing buckets, bowls, even his own boots, anything that could hold water. He placed them under the leaks one by one while Frida gave him a look that said, "I told you we should have moved to that other hut." But even as he worked, even as the fire reluctantly returned to life, Gareth knew something was off. The wind outside wasn't easing, it was strengthening, picking up speed, whistling now, screaming between the boards, and then he felt it, the shake, not strong, not like an earthquake, but a shiver through the house itself, as if the walls had flinched, as if the storm had grabbed the entire building by the shoulders and said, "I'm not playing anymore." Gareth turned toward Ilsa. She was awake now, her eyes wide, holding the baby tighter. The older kids stirred, confused, frightened. The goat bleated nervously. Frida had already moved to a higher perch because chickens are smarter than they look. Then came the real moment of dread. The sound of the roof shifting. Not creaking, shifting. One long, moaning adjustment, and then a rip. Snow poured in, not a trickle, not a drip. An avalanche of white burst through the corner of the roof, flooding the floor, hitting the fire, killing it instantly with a hiss that sounded far too much like laughter. "Chaos," Ilsa shouted. The kids screamed. Gareth moved fast, sweeping them all toward the far wall, away from the collapse, shielding them with his body. The goat tried to escape through the front door and promptly got stuck. Frida flew in small, frantic circles, which did absolutely nothing but somehow felt appropriate. And there, in the chaos, Gareth found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Not a grand, poetic prayer, a simple one. Mumbled through chattering teeth and clenched jaw. Please, just let the roof hold. Because if more snow came in, if more beams gave way, if the wind got worse, it wouldn't just be a mess. It would be over. But the storm, as if hearing the plea, relented. Slightly. The wind dipped, the snow slowed, and miracle of miracles, the rest of the roof stayed up. Gareth moved quickly, found the last dry blanket, covered the hole as best he could, shoving it in place with a stick and a rock and something sticky he didn't ask questions about. The fire was dead, but the family was safe. Cold, shaken, soaked, but safe. They huddled together in the corner, wrapped in every scrap of warmth they could find. Ilsa rocked the baby. The kids clung to each other. Gareth sat with his back to the wall, one arm around Ilsa, the other gripping a damp, smoldering stick like a torchbearer in a war against the elements. No one spoke. What was there to say? This was the cost of living on the edge of survival, of depending on patched walls and tired fire and a roof held together by stubbornness. This was the reality of a peasant's night. One bad gust, one leak, one small failure could unravel everything, but they had made it. Again, by morning the storm had passed. The room was cold, damp, half silent. Steam rose from their clothes. Snow still clung to the floor. The fire was dead ash. The roof sagged. But Gareth stood. His knees cracked. His back groaned. But he stood. Because that's what you do. You stand, you fix, you keep going. You patch the roof with your hands and your pride and maybe a little goat hair. You light the fire again. You wring out the blankets and tell the kids it's all part of the adventure. You pretend you're not cold. You make porridge with half the ingredients and twice the hope. You survive. Because that's what Gareth does. And tonight, when the fire is burning again and the roof is patched again, and the goat has somehow found its way onto the table again, he'll sleep, not peacefully, but deeply, like a man who knows that the storm may come again, but so will the morning. The morning after the storm, the world outside Gareth's cottage was cloaked in a heavy silence. Snow blanketed the landscape, muffling the usual sounds of the village. The air was crisp, each breath visible as a fleeting cloud. Inside, the hearth's embers glowed faintly, offering minimal warmth. Gareth stirred, his joints stiff from the cold and the previous night's exertions. Ilsa was already awake, tending to the fire with practiced hands. The children remained bundled together, their faces peeking out from beneath layers of blankets. Frida, the chicken, clucked softly, nestled in a corner. The goat, ever the opportunist, had found its way inside during the night and now stood near the door, looking expectantly at Gareth. Breakfast was a modest affair. Stale bread softened with warm broth, a few slices of cheese, and a shared apple. Despite the meager fare, there was a sense of gratitude. They had weathered the storm together, and that was no small feat. After the meal, Gareth donned his cloak and stepped outside. The snow crunched beneath his boots as he made his way to the woodpile. The storm had scattered the logs, and he began the task of gathering them, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Back inside, Ilsa had organized the children into a semblance of order. The older ones assisted with chores, fetching water, mending clothes, and tending to the animals. The younger ones played quietly, their laughter a welcome sound amidst the day's labor. As the day progressed, Gareth focused on repairing the roof. The storm had left several gaps, and he worked diligently, using whatever materials he could find. Each patch was a testament to their resilience, a barrier against the unforgiving elements. Inside, Ilsa prepared the evening meal. A hearty stew simmered over the fire, its aroma filling the cottage. She added herbs and spices sparingly, stretching their limited supplies. The children set the table, their movements coordinated and efficient. Dinner was a communal event, filled with stories and shared laughter. Gareth recounted tales from his youth, embellishing details to the delight of the children. Ilsa added her own anecdotes, painting vivid pictures of past winters and the lessons they had learned. As night fell, the family gathered around the hearth. The fire crackled, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Ilsa began to spin wool, her hands moving rhythmically. Gareth carved a piece of wood, shaping it into a small toy for the youngest child. The children listened intently, their eyes heavy with sleep. Eventually, one by one, they retired for the night. Gareth and Ilsa remained by the fire, sharing a quiet moment. They spoke of the days ahead, the tasks to be done, and the challenges they would face. But for now, they allowed themselves a brief respite, comforted by the warmth of the fire and the presence of their family. In the stillness of the night, Gareth reflected on the day's events. The storm had tested their endurance, but it had also reinforced their unity. Together, they had faced adversity and emerged stronger. He knew that more challenges lay ahead, but with Ilsa by his side and their children thriving, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. As the fire dwindled to embers, Gareth added another log, ensuring it would burn through the night. He joined Ilsa, wrapping an arm around her as they settled in for sleep. Outside, the wind had calmed, and the snow-covered landscape glistened under the moonlight. Inside, the cottage was a haven of warmth and love, a sanctuary against the harshness of the world beyond. The morning sun filtered through the frost-laced window panes, casting a pale glow over the modest cottage. Gareth stirred from his slumber, the warmth of the hearth having long since dissipated. He rose slowly, careful not to disturb Ilsa and the children, who remained bundled together under layers of blankets. The remnants of the storm still lingered, evident in the snowdrifts piled against the door and the creaking of the roof under the weight of the ice. Stepping outside, Gareth was met with a biting wind that cut through his cloak. The village lay silent, the usual bustle of morning chores replaced by an eerie stillness. He surveyed the damage. Fences toppled, roofs caved in, and paths obscured by snow. The storm had not only tested their endurance, but had also left a trail of destruction that would take days, if not weeks, to mend. Returning inside, Gareth found Ilsa tending to the fire, coaxing it back to life with kindling and determination. The children stirred, their faces pale but eyes bright with resilience. Breakfast was a simple affair: porridge made from the last of the oats and a few dried berries. Despite the meager fare, there was a sense of gratitude. They had survived the storm, and that was no small feat. After the meal, Gareth and Ilsa divided the day's tasks. Gareth would venture into the village to check on neighbors and assess the broader damage, while Ilsa would remain home, caring for the children and beginning repairs on their own dwelling. The journey through the snow-laden paths was arduous, each step a battle against the elements. Upon reaching the village center, Gareth found a gathering of weary faces, each etched with concern and determination. Together, they shared news and resources, offering assistance where needed. The sense of community was palpable, a collective strength forged in adversity. Gareth spent the day helping to clear paths, reinforce structures, and distribute supplies. As dusk approached, he made his way back home, muscles aching but heart buoyed by the solidarity he had witnessed. Back at the cottage, Ilsa had made significant progress. The roof was patched, the hearth blazed warmly, and the children were engaged in quiet play. Dinner was a modest stew, its aroma filling the room and providing a sense of normalcy amidst the chaos. After the meal, the family gathered around the fire, sharing stories and laughter, finding solace in each other's company. As night fell, Gareth and Ilsa sat together, reflecting on the day's events. The storm had tested their limits, but it had also revealed the depth of their resilience and the strength of their community. They knew challenges lay ahead, but for now, they took comfort in the warmth of their home and the love that bound them together. In the quiet of the night, as the wind whispered outside and the fire crackled softly, Gareth allowed himself a moment of peace. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who persevere in the face of adversity. The wind had quieted, but Gareth knew better than to trust silence in winter. It was the kind of silence that didn't bring peace, it brought anticipation. The air was still too heavy, the snow too pristine, like a canvas waiting for something to stain it. Gareth stood at the edge of the field, squinting toward the tree line. He didn't see anything, not yet, but the back of his neck tingled. That was enough. The storm had taken its toll, on the roof, on the crops, on the people. But worse than the weather was what followed it: the hunger. For the first few days, the family managed well enough. They rationed carefully, stretched every root vegetable, every crust of bread, every crumb of cheese. Ilsa worked magic with scraps, transforming little into less, but somehow making it feel like enough. Gareth helped repair neighbors' homes in exchange for food, half a dried rabbit here, a sack of turnips there. It wasn't much, but it kept them moving. Then came the knock, not the kind you hear at the front door. This one came at night, soft, deliberate. Gareth opened the door to find Ewan, the village watchman, pale and nervous. "Something's gone missing," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "Missing?" Gareth asked. "What? Food?" Ewan hesitated. "Animals. 3 sheep. 1 from old Bram's pen and 2 from the Briarwood farm." Gareth's stomach dropped. Theft wasn't unheard of in hard winters, but it was rare. Everyone in the village depended on each other. If someone was stealing, it meant things were worse than anyone was admitting. Or it meant something else, something outside the village. "Tracks?" Gareth asked. Ewan nodded, leading into the woods, but not normal. Bigger. Bigger. That word lingered in Gareth's head all night. He didn't sleep, neither did Ilsa. The next morning, Gareth set out with Ewan and 2 others to follow the tracks. They moved slowly, weapons drawn, axes, pitchforks, anything with a point. The snow was deep, but the trail was clear. And the prints, they weren't human. Not entirely. Too wide, too deep. Clawed. They found the remains of 1 sheep near the riverbank, what was left of it, bones scattered and snapped like twigs, blood soaked into the snow, frozen dark, but no other tracks led away. Just more prints heading toward the deeper woods. The men stood in silence, every one of them thinking the same thing, but not daring to say it out loud. Something was hunting. They returned to the village and doubled the watches. Families were told to stay indoors at night, to keep fires burning and animals locked in. Gareth didn't want to frighten the children, but fear doesn't wait for permission. It seeps in. The kids knew something was wrong. They huddled closer at night. Ilsa slept with a knife beneath her pillow. 3 nights later, it came closer. The goat started it, a low, warning bleat that turned into a panic-stricken scream. Gareth was already on his feet, grabbing the axe. He burst into the night, Ilsa right behind him with a torch. The pen had been torn open, not broken, torn. Splinters everywhere. The goat was gone. No tracks this time, just drag marks and silence, always the silence. That night, Gareth stood watch, all night, eyes fixed on the dark beyond the fire's edge, waiting, listening. Nothing came. But he knew it would. The next day, he reinforced the pen, sharpened stakes, dug trenches, anything to make the cottage less inviting to whatever was out there. Other families did the same. It brought the village together in a new way. Fear does that. People who hadn't spoken in weeks now exchanged tools, offered help, shared rumors. One of the children claimed to have seen glowing eyes in the woods. Another said he heard whispers in the wind. The priest muttered about old curses. The blacksmith said it was a bear, just a hungry bear. Gareth didn't argue, but deep down he knew this wasn't a bear. The attacks stopped for a while. Days passed, snow fell again. Life returned to a strained version of normal. Then, just as the village began to exhale, a scream ripped through the morning. It was Bram. His son had gone missing during first light, when he'd gone to fetch firewood. They found only a torn cloak and more of those clawed tracks. This time, Gareth didn't wait for the others. He packed food, wrapped his axe, kissed Ilsa, and told the children to listen to their mother. Then he followed the tracks into the woods, alone. The forest was quiet, but not dead. Birds watched him from high branches. Snow fell softly, muting his footsteps. The trail twisted through brambles and under old, leaning trees. He moved carefully, eyes scanning the shadows. Hours passed, the tracks grew fresher, the trees grew denser. And then he found it, a clearing, a circle of scorched earth. In the center, bones arranged in a strange, deliberate pattern. And in the trees around it, symbols carved deep. Ancient. He didn't understand them, but he felt them, like a weight on his chest, like eyes on the back of his neck. He turned to leave and froze. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood a figure. Tall, wrong, cloaked in rags and branches, eyes glowing faintly. Gareth's breath caught in his throat. It didn't speak, it just watched. Then, slowly, it stepped back into the trees and vanished. Gareth didn't chase it, he couldn't. He just ran. Back to the village, back to the fire, back to the only thing that made sense. That night, he told no one. Just held Ilsa a little tighter, kept the fire burning a little longer, and whispered to the darkness, "I saw it." The fire was burning low again, but Gareth didn't dare let it die. He sat close to it, one hand on the axe resting across his knees, the other feeding in splinters of pine one at a time. Outside, the wind howled against the cracks in the walls, and the old timbers creaked like they were whispering secrets. Inside, Ilsa slept lightly, her body curled protectively around the youngest child. The other children were nestled close, their breathing even, but too shallow, too alert. No one was really sleeping anymore. The memory of the clearing still burned in Gareth's mind. The symbols, the bones, the figure. He hadn't told the village. Not yet. Because how do you explain something you can't name? How do you warn people about a thing that doesn't leave tracks you can follow or make sounds you can defend against? It wasn't just fear, it was disbelief. Say it out loud, and you might start to believe you're mad. But Gareth wasn't mad. He was terrified. And that terror had shape and size and eyes that glowed like cold fire. The next morning, Gareth woke to a knock on the door, not soft and strange like before, but frantic, panicked. It was Tom, a young man from the south end of the village, pale, shaking, covered in scratches. It took her, Tom gasped, barely making it inside before collapsing. My sister, gone. No scream, no sound, just gone. Ilsa pulled him close, wrapped him in a blanket, gave him tea. Gareth didn't ask questions. He already knew the answers. The village gathered again, and this time, Gareth spoke. He told them about the tracks, about the clearing, about the figure he'd seen. Some believed, most didn't. But when Tom raised his eyes and with a broken voice said he'd seen the same glowing eyes in the trees, something changed. This was no longer a bear, no longer a thief. It was something else, something that chose its moments, something that watched. The council agreed to organize patrols. Night watches, alarm bells. Every family was to keep their fires burning and their doors barred. But firewood was running low, the nights were longer, and fear burns faster than logs. That evening, Gareth stayed behind from patrol. Ilsa needed him. The children were shaking. The youngest had started sleep-talking, whispers, muttering phrases he'd never heard before. She's listening, the boy had said in a voice that didn't sound like his own. She knows when you forget. Ilsa heard it too. She didn't speak for the rest of the night. Gareth kept the axe by the door, the torch burning beside it. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind sent his heart racing. But nothing came. Until the following night. It was Frida again, the chicken. Her panic woke them. Not a cluck, a scream. Yes, a chicken scream, shrill and unnatural. And then, silence. Gareth rushed outside. The coop was destroyed, feathers everywhere, blood in the snow, and in the distance, just past the edge of the firelight, those eyes. He didn't chase this time, he just watched. The eyes stared back, unblinking, calm. And then, they blinked out, gone. The fear in the village shifted after that. It wasn't loud anymore, it was quiet, tense. People spoke less, looked over their shoulders more. Children stopped playing outside. The laughter stopped. It was Ilsa who said it first. She's choosing. Who? Gareth asked, but he already knew. The one in the woods, she said. The one who watches. That night, Ilsa took the children to sleep in the loft, the highest part of the cottage. Gareth stayed below, near the fire, near the door. Hours passed. Then, a knock. Not loud, not frantic, not human. 3 soft taps. Gareth didn't move, didn't breathe. The door creaked open just slightly, enough to let in the cold. He stepped forward, axe raised, heart pounding was there. But in the snow, a symbol, one he'd seen before, from the clearing, drawn in blood. They were marked. The days that followed were a blur. No one slept. No one left their homes alone. The village meetings turned into arguments, accusations. People began blaming each other, saying someone had summoned it, that someone had brought this curse down. And Gareth, he just watched. Waited. Until one morning, a note appeared outside his door, written in ash, a single line. Return what was taken. But he hadn't taken anything. Had he? That night, Ilsa sat across from him, eyes dark and tired. We have to go back, she said. To the clearing? She nodded. Gareth knew she was right, because this wasn't random, this wasn't hunger. This was a warning, and warnings don't stop. They escalate. So they packed. Ilsa took the children to her sister's house on the other side of the valley, far from the village. Gareth would go back alone, back to the forest, back to the place where the silence had a heartbeat. He would face it, because sometimes the only way to survive the darkness is to walk straight into it. The forest did not welcome Gareth back. It tolerated him. Barely. He could feel it in the air, thicker than the fog that drifted like low-hanging ghosts. Each step was met with resistance, not from the underbrush, but from something intangible. The trees leaned a little too close. The wind didn't whistle, it hissed. But Gareth didn't turn back. Not this time. He had made a promise, not just to Ilsa, but to the ancient force he had felt in that clearing. He had seen the eyes. He had heard the whispers. And now he needed answers. It took hours to reach the clearing again, longer than it should have. The woods had a way of bending space, of hiding what they didn't want found. But Gareth kept moving, led by instinct or something older, until the trees parted like curtains to reveal the place where the world frayed at the edges. The clearing was unchanged. The altar still stood at its center, a slab of stone etched with symbols that pulsed faintly as if breathing. Around it, the totems had multiplied. More bones, more arrangements. Someone or something had been here since his last visit. He approached slowly, cautious, respectful. He removed his cloak and laid it on the ground, a gesture of humility. He knelt. Then he waited. For a long time, nothing happened. Only the wind, the cold. Then, a voice. Not outside, but within. You returned. It wasn't a question. It was a judgment. I came to understand, Gareth said aloud, not sure who he was addressing. To make this right. Images flashed behind his eyes. Memories that weren't his. The village long ago, smaller, simpler. The people who once walked these woods with reverence, who left offerings, who sang old songs to the trees. Then the breaking, the greed, the forgetting. You took, the voice said, and this time it was many voices, layered and ancient. You forgot, now you suffer. Gareth lowered his head. I didn't know. Now you do. What must I do? He whispered. Silence. Then, from the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Not the cloaked one from before. This one was taller, more fluid, draped in what looked like woven bark and moss. No face, only those familiar glowing eyes. It didn't speak, but Gareth understood. This wasn't about punishment. It was about balance. The forest had protected them for generations, but protection came with a pact, one they had broken. You must remind them, the voice echoed. Gareth nodded slowly. I will. As if in approval, the clearing pulsed with light. The wind calmed. The trees no longer loomed. He left the axe behind. When Gareth returned to the village, the sky was turning gray with morning. His face was drawn, his eyes different, older, perhaps. The villagers saw it too. They gathered silently, waiting for him to speak. And he did. He told them everything, not just about the creature or the clearing, but about the pact their ancestors had made. The traditions they had lost, the respect that had withered. Some scoffed, but most listened, because they had seen the eyes too. They had lost people. And deep down, they knew something sacred had been broken. So they rebuilt not just fences, but rituals. They planted trees, they cleansed the stream, they sang, and the eyes watching from the woods slowly began to disappear. The forest had begun to breathe again. Not in the way trees sway or leaves rustle, but in the way a long-held breath finally exhales. Since Gareth's return from the clearing, the village had shifted. Not dramatically, not with fanfare, but with quiet, deliberate steps towards something older, something sacred. It started with the children. They began to play near the edge of the woods again, their laughter tentative but genuine. Ilsa noticed the change first. The air felt lighter, the nights less oppressive. The ever-present tension that had gripped the village seemed to loosen its hold. Gareth, however, remained vigilant. He knew that appeasing the Guardian was not a one-time act, but an ongoing commitment. The pact he had made, unspoken yet deeply understood, required more than mere acknowledgement. It demanded action. He gathered the villagers in the communal hall, the hearth casting flickering shadows on the walls. With a steady voice, he recounted his experience in the clearing, the presence he had felt, and the understanding that had passed between them. He spoke of the need to honor the forest, to live in harmony with it, not in dominance over it. Some villagers were skeptical, their brows furrowed, arms crossed. But others nodded, memories of the recent terror still fresh in their minds. They remembered the eyes in the dark, the missing livestock, the sense of being watched. The forest had made its displeasure known. Together, they devised a plan. They would hold a ceremony, a gesture of goodwill, a promise to the Guardian that they sought to mend the broken bond. Elders recalled old traditions, fragments of rituals passed down through generations. Offerings of bread and salt, symbols of hospitality and preservation, would be placed at the forest's edge. Songs would be sung, not of conquest, but of gratitude. On the appointed day, the village gathered at dusk. Children carried baskets of offerings, their faces solemn, Elders led chants, their voices weaving through the trees. Gareth stood at the forefront, his heart pounding, not with fear, but with hope. As the final note of the song faded, a hush fell over the gathering. The forest responded, not with words, but with a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves, a soft glow that seemed to emanate from the very earth. It was subtle but unmistakable. The guardian had heard them. In the days that followed, the village flourished. Crops grew more bountiful, the river ran clearer, and a sense of peace settled over the land. The villagers continued their offerings, not out of obligation, but out of respect. They had learned that the forest was not a resource to be exploited, but a partner to be cherished. Gareth often returned to the clearing, not to seek favor, but to sit in silence, to listen. He felt the guardian's presence not as a looming threat, but as a watchful protector. The balance had been restored, not through force, but through understanding. And so the village thrived, nestled at the edge of the ancient woods, its people living in harmony with the forest, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of nature. The guardian remained ever watchful, a silent testament to the power of respect, of humility, and the enduring bond between man and the natural world. The wind had changed again. It didn't howl or shriek like before, but it carried something with it. A whisper, maybe. A reminder. Gareth felt it as he stood on the ridge above the village, looking out at the freshly turned earth of their spring planting. The forest behind him was still, but he didn't trust the stillness anymore. Stillness, he'd learned, could be a pause or a warning. It had been weeks since the ceremony. Weeks of peace, of growth, of laughter cautiously returning to the children's faces. The crops sprouted early, the river fish were fatter, the trees even seemed greener. And yet Gareth couldn't shake the weight in his chest. Like he was being watched, not with hostility, but with expectation. That night, Ilsa noticed it too. "There's something coming," she whispered, fingers tightening around her mug. Gareth didn't ask how she knew. They'd both seen too much to doubt intuition anymore. Sure enough, the next day brought strangers. 3 riders, cloaked in deep blue, entered the village just before sunset. They bore no weapons, at least none visible, but their presence felt sharp. They claimed to be from the city far east, sent to investigate reports of disturbances in the region. A wolf attack here, a vanishing livestock report there, whispers of forest curses. Gareth watched them closely during their stay. They were polite, measured, always asking questions. Too many questions. What had the villagers seen? Had there been lights in the woods? Did anyone go missing? Did anyone speak with something? And always, Gareth noticed, they glanced toward the forest, not out of curiosity, out of fear. The villagers, for the most part, told them little, not out of secrecy, but out of reverence. They didn't want to disrupt what had only just been repaired. They spoke of improved crops, of better health, of peace. But not of the glowing eyes, or the clearing. On the 3rd night, Gareth found one of the strangers near the forest edge, drawing symbols in the dirt. The same symbols Gareth had seen carved into the altar. "Where did you learn those?" Gareth asked, voice low. The man looked up. His face was calm, unreadable. "You've seen them." It wasn't a question. "We're not here to cause harm," the stranger continued, "but we're not the first to notice something has changed. These markings haven't been seen in 100 years, and they always mean one thing. The forest is waking up." Gareth didn't respond. "Whatever bargain you struck," the man said, "it's older than you understand." And with that, the strangers left, without a word to the rest of the village, without taking anything, just gone. Gone. The silence that followed was different, deeper. That night, Gareth dreamt of the clearing again, but it had changed. The altar was cracked, the light was dim, and standing in the center was the guardian, but it looked at him not with anger or peace, but with sorrow. When he awoke, the fire was out, and Ilsa was already outside. She pointed. Smoke, not from a hearth, but from the woods. Gareth gathered a group and followed the trail. What they found was worse than fire. Trees felled, a wide path carved into the forest like a scar. At the center, a camp, empty now, but clearly used by outsiders. Saws, burned wood. A stone marked with the same symbol, but reversed, defaced. Someone had come, and they had desecrated. That night, the eyes returned. Not at the edge, not in the shadows, in the village. Livestock vanished, tools twisted into unrecognizable shapes. A child claimed the wind whispered his name all night. The guardian wasn't angry. It was confused, hurt. They had broken the pact again, and not from greed, but from ignorance. Gareth stood before the village once more, his voice hoarse. This isn't punishment, this is pain. We wounded the very thing that gave us peace. He didn't blame them. He didn't plead. He simply told them what needed to happen. They would return to the clearing. They would rebuild. They would apologize, not to a god, not to a monster, but to a force older than memory. And if they didn't, the forest wouldn't scream this time. It would mourn, and mourning is much harder to survive. The forest had gone quiet again, but not in the way that made your skin crawl. This was different. A silence that felt earned, sacred, like the hush that follows a prayer whispered under breath. Gareth felt it as he stepped into the clearing for the first time since the ceremony. The altar stood whole again, its symbols glowing faintly like embers buried under ash. The totems had been rebuilt by hand, each one carved carefully by villagers who now understood the weight of what they were touching. Still, Gareth knew this piece was fragile. The damage done by the outsiders had not simply vanished. Though the villagers had tried to mend the clearing, the forest remembered. It always did. And Gareth had the dreams to prove it. Almost every night now, he would wake drenched in sweat, heart racing. He saw the guardian in new forms, taller, darker, sometimes weeping sap like tears. Sometimes it screamed without sound. Other times it simply watched as if waiting for Gareth to act again. Then one morning, something changed. A child, the baker's youngest, wandered too close to the woods and didn't come back. Not at first, anyway. When they found him, hours later, just beyond the tree line, he was unharmed. Not a scratch on him. But he wouldn't speak, wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep. He just stared at nothing, or maybe at something no one else could see. Ilsa was the first to sit with him. She held his hand, hummed old lullabies, and eventually the boy whispered a single sentence. She said, "We forgot again." Panic rippled through the village like a shiver through bone. They had tried so hard, they had meant every word, but maybe it wasn't enough. So Gareth returned to the clearing, alone. He carried no axe, no offering, only the weight of his questions. He stood before the altar, hands trembling. "We didn't forget," he said quietly. "We didn't mean to." The forest didn't respond at first, but then a breeze, warm, strange for early autumn. And then voices, not like before, not angry, not layered. One voice soft like wind through reeds. You remembered too late. Gareth dropped to his knees. "What do you mean?" "The pact was broken, not just by you, but by time, by forgetting, by silence. You rebuilt the altar, but not the memory." Gareth didn't understand. Then the vision came. Not of the guardian, but of the village. Generations ago, a ceremony, far more elaborate than theirs. Songs in a forgotten tongue. Children taught the symbols by elders with painted faces, offerings not just made but understood. They had lost more than ritual. They had lost the story, and without the story, the bond meant nothing. The voice returned. You must carry it back, not the pact, the memory. Gareth staggered back to the village. He didn't sleep. He didn't speak. He wrote. For days, he wrote the vision, the songs, the rituals, the meanings, the pain, the mistakes. And when he was done, he gathered the village. No altar this time, no offerings, just his voice. He told them everything. He didn't perform. He remembered and made them remember. And as he spoke, the wind shifted. Not harsh, not bitter, just listening. From that day forward, they stopped calling it a pact. They called it a story, one they would never forget again. The forest was no longer silent. Not in the way it had been before the pact was broken, but in a new, unsettling way. The usual rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the distant howl of wolves were absent. Instead, an eerie stillness hung in the air, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Gareth stood at the edge of the clearing, the place where the villagers had once gathered to honor the guardian. The altar, once a symbol of their respect and unity, now lay in ruins, its stones scattered and covered in moss. The totems that had stood tall, carved with symbols of protection and reverence, were now toppled, their wood rotting and infested with insects. He felt a deep sense of loss, not just for the physical destruction, but for the broken bond between the village and the forest. The guardian had been silent since the last ceremony, and Gareth feared that their connection had been severed beyond repair. Determined to make amends, Gareth returned to the village and called for a meeting. The villagers gathered in the communal hall, their faces etched with worry and uncertainty. He spoke of the forest's silence, the ruined altar, and the need to restore their relationship with the guardian. "We must rebuild," he said, his voice firm. "Not just the altar, but our commitment to the forest and its guardian. We must show that we have not forgotten our promises." The villagers agreed, and together they set out to repair the damage. They cleared the clearing of debris, gathered stones to reconstruct the altar, and carved new totems with symbols of respect and unity. They worked tirelessly, driven by a shared purpose and a desire to restore the balance they had once enjoyed. As they worked, Gareth couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He often caught glimpses of movement in the shadows, heard whispers carried by the wind, and felt a presence just beyond his sight. He hoped it was the guardian, observing their efforts and considering their sincerity. When the altar was finally rebuilt, the villagers gathered for a new ceremony. They brought offerings of food, handmade crafts, and tokens of gratitude. They sang songs of reverence, recited prayers, and pledged to honor the forest and its guardian. As the ceremony concluded, a gentle breeze swept through the clearing, rustling the leaves and carrying the scent of blooming flowers. The villagers felt a sense of peace and relief, believing that their efforts had been acknowledged. In the days that followed, the forest began to come alive again. Birds returned to their nests, animals emerged from hiding, and the trees seemed to stand taller and greener. The villagers resumed their daily lives, mindful of their renewed commitment to the forest and its guardian. Gareth continued to visit the clearing, tending to the altar and ensuring that the totems remained intact. He often sat in silence, reflecting on the events that had transpired and the lessons they had learned. He knew that their bond with the forest was fragile and required constant care and respect. One evening, as he sat by the altar, he heard a soft voice carried by the wind. It was the guardian speaking to him once more. "You have shown humility and sincerity," the voice said. "The bond is restored, but remember, it must be nurtured and protected." Gareth nodded, understanding the weight of the guardian's words. He vowed to uphold their promises and ensure that future generations would continue to honor the forest and its guardian. With the bond renewed, the village and the forest thrived together, their lives intertwined in harmony and mutual respect. The villagers never forgot the lessons they had learned, and they remained vigilant in their stewardship of the land. And so, the story of the guardian and the village became a tale passed down through generations, a reminder of the importance of balance, respect, and the enduring connection between humanity and nature. The forest had begun to breathe again, not in the way trees sway or leaves rustle, but in the way a long-held breath finally exhales. Since Gareth's return from the clearing, the village had shifted, not dramatically, not with fanfare, but with quiet, deliberate steps toward something older, something sacred. It started with the children. They began to play near the edge of the woods again, their laughter tentative but genuine. Ilsa noticed the change first. The air felt lighter, the nights less oppressive. The ever-present tension that had gripped the village seemed to loosen its hold. Gareth, however, remained vigilant. He knew that appeasing the guardian was not a one-time act, but an ongoing commitment. The pact he had made, unspoken yet deeply understood, required more than mere acknowledgement. It demanded action. He gathered the villagers in the communal hall, the hearth casting flickering shadows on the walls. With a steady voice, he recounted his experience in the clearing, the presence he had felt, and the understanding that had passed between them. He spoke of the need to honor the forest, to live in harmony with it, not in dominance over it. Some villagers were skeptical, their brows furrowed, arms crossed. But others nodded, memories of the recent terror still fresh in their minds. They remembered the eyes in the dark, the missing livestock, the sense of being watched. The forest had made its displeasure known. Together they devised a plan. They would hold a ceremony, a gesture of goodwill, a promise to the guardian that they sought to mend the broken bond. Elders recalled old traditions, fragments of rituals passed down through generations. Offerings of bread and salt, symbols of hospitality and preservation, would be placed at the forest's edge. Songs would be sung, not of conquest, but of gratitude. On the appointed day, the village gathered at dusk. Children carried baskets of offerings, their faces solemn. Elders led chants, their voices weaving through the trees. Gareth stood at the forefront, his heart pounding, not with fear, but with hope. As the final note of the song faded, a hush fell over the gathering. The forest responded, not with words, but with a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves, a soft glow that seemed to emanate from the very earth. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The guardian had heard them. In the days that followed, the village flourished. Crops grew more bountiful, the river ran clearer, and a sense of peace settled over the land. The villagers continued their offerings, not out of obligation, but out of respect. They had learned that the forest was not a resource to be exploited, but a partner to be cherished. Gareth often returned to the clearing, not to seek favor, but to sit in silence to listen. He felt the guardian's presence, not as a looming threat, but as a watchful protector. The balance had been restored, not through force, but through understanding. And so the village thrived, nestled at the edge of the ancient woods, its people living in harmony with the forest, their lives intertwined with the rhythms of nature. The guardian remained, ever watchful, a silent testament to the power of respect, of humility, and of the enduring bond between man and the natural world. The village was breathing again, but beneath the surface calm something stirred. It had been weeks since the last offering to the guardian. The crops were thriving, children played freely along the forest's edge, and the villagers, once hollow-eyed with fear, had returned to song and laughter. Yet Gareth felt it in his bones, a subtle shift, a quiet tension. He wasn't the only one. Ilsa, always attuned to the rhythms of the forest, noticed the birds. They weren't nesting where they usually did. The foxes, once playful near the river, now lingered farther from the trees. Even the insects, the endless humming chorus of dusk, seemed quieter. One night, as Gareth sat by the rebuilt altar, he heard something. Not the guardian, not words, but movement. A different presence. Curious, watching. The next morning, strange tracks were found near the western edge of the forest. Not quite animal, not quite human. Deep prints, wide strides, something heavy. By noon, a scout from a neighboring village arrived, bloodied and breathless. Their shrine had been desecrated, offerings taken, trees carved with marks that bled sap like wounds. Gareth felt the chills sink deep. Not everyone respected the pact, not everyone remembered. And forgetting, it seemed, had consequences. The elders met that night in the hall. The room buzzed with worry and theory. Bandits, wild beasts, the return of the outsiders. But Gareth knew better. This wasn't an accident, he said. This was a message. He told them of the shifting winds, the silent birds, the watching presence. Not the guardian, but something else. Something older, perhaps angrier. A shadow born from neglect. Ilsa nodded. The guardian gave us peace, but the forest is vast, and not all who dwell in it seek balance. That night, the village prepared, not for war, but for awareness. Lookouts were stationed, paths were marked with protective symbols. Songs were sung at twilight, not just for reverence, but for warning. Days passed, then a week, then came the fire. It began in the west, near the river bend, a slow crawl of flame, unnatural and deliberate. Trees that had stood for generations burned with eerie silence. The villagers formed lines with buckets and wet cloths, fighting back with all they had. The guardian didn't intervene, not this time. By dawn, the fire was out, but what remained was worse. The altar had been marked, deep, jagged gouges across its surface, a warning carved into stone. Gareth returned to the clearing alone. He knelt by the damaged altar, his voice hoarse. "Why are you silent?" The wind shifted, and then came the voice, not of the guardian, but another, cold, hollow, older. "You gave memory to one, but forgot the others." Gareth didn't understand, until the vision came. Other clearings, other altars, abandoned, cracked and overgrown, places where villages once flourished and had since vanished. The forest remembered them all, and so did the others. Not guardians, but watchers. Spirits that had once coexisted until forgotten. Now they wanted recognition, not peace, not balance, just fear. Gareth returned and shared what he had seen. The elders were shaken. "What do we do?" one asked. Gareth's answer was quiet. "We remember them." And so began a new chapter. They gathered stories from old scrolls, elders' songs, and forgotten chants. They mapped the locations of the old altars, rebuilt, cleaned, sang, prayed, not just to the guardian, but to all that had been left behind. The forest listened, and for now it allowed them to try. The forest had not returned to silence. It had merely shifted tones. Where once there was ominous quiet, heavy and suffocating, now there was a tension, alive and vibrating like a taut string before it snaps. Gareth could feel it every time he stepped near the edge of the tree line. The ground was softer, almost reluctant to hold weight. The air hung thicker, buzzing with whispers only the trees seemed to understand. After the fires, after the strange markings and the visions of forgotten spirits, the village had done its best to recover, not just physically, but spiritually. They had rebuilt shrines and offered songs, reaching back generations to find words older than memory. But Gareth knew they had only scratched the surface. The Guardian had forgiven, yes, but the others, the Watchers, the Shades, the Deep Ones, had simply stirred. They weren't angry, they were awake, and they were curious. One morning, a trail of black feathers led from the forest into the center of the village. Not from any known bird. These were large, oil-slick, and humming faintly with heat. They weren't left by accident. They're marking paths, Ilsa whispered, crouched by the trail, invitations or warnings. Either way, it was clear. Someone had to go deeper. Gareth knew the stories of the Woken Ones, the spirits who once ruled before the Guardians, fickle beings, powerful. Some had names, most had none, but all demanded respect. So he went. With only a lantern, a blade he didn't know how to use, and a pouch of salt and bread, Gareth walked into the forest, not to the altar, but beyond it, into places no one had tread for years. The trees there grew differently, thicker, twisted, older than he imagined possible. Moss hung like cobwebs, and the air tasted like stone. He reached a clearing that wasn't marked on any village map. At its center was a stone, massive, cracked, humming. Around it, smaller stones arranged in a spiral, each etched with the same sigil. Gareth stepped into the spiral, and the world shifted. Voices rose, not loud, not angry, just present, watching, judging. He knelt, offering the bread and salt, whispering the old names. One voice responded, not with words, but a feeling, acknowledgement, not forgiveness, not yet. A test. He returned to the village changed, paler, quieter, as though part of him had been left behind. But he bore a mark on his palm, the sigil burned faintly into the skin. They had noticed him, and the true reckoning hadn't even begun. The forest no longer whispered. It spoke in riddles, in rustling leaves and shifting shadows, in the hush that fell over the village as dusk approached. Gareth, marked by the sigil burned into his palm, felt the weight of unseen eyes upon him. The villagers, once comforted by the restored balance, now sensed an undercurrent of unease. The ancient spirits, awakened by the rekindled rituals, were not content with mere acknowledgement. They demanded reverence. Determined to understand the forest's new demands, Gareth sought counsel from the elders and the oldest texts they possessed. They spoke of the Leshy, the guardian spirit of Slavic forests, known for its shape-shifting abilities and its role as protector of the woods and its creatures. The Leshy, they said, could be a guide or a trickster, depending on how it was treated. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweet morsels were traditional, left at the forest's edge to appease the spirit and ensure safe passage through its domain. Gareth organized a new ceremony incorporating these ancient practices. The villagers gathered at the forest's edge, placing their offerings on stone altars and singing songs passed down through generations. As the final notes faded into the night, a gentle breeze stirred the trees, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly. It was a sign, subtle but unmistakable. The Leshy had acknowledged their efforts. However, the forest held more than just the Leshy. Tales from other cultures spoke of spirits like the Nang Takian of Thai folklore, a female entity inhabiting the Hopia odorata tree. Known to be both benevolent and vengeful, she required offerings and respect, lest she bring misfortune upon those who disrespected her tree. Gareth realized that the forest was a tapestry of spirits, each with its own desires and rituals. To maintain harmony, the village would need to honor them all. They began to map the forest, marking sacred trees and groves and assigning caretakers to each site. Offerings varied. Some spirits preferred food, others trinkets or songs, but the intent was always the same: respect and remembrance. As the villagers deepened their connection with the forest, they noticed changes. The crops grew more robust, animals returned to the area, and the air felt cleaner, more vibrant. The spirits, once restless, seemed appeased. Yet, Gareth remained vigilant, understanding that the balance was delicate and required constant attention. One night, a child from the village wandered into the forest and became lost. The villagers searched frantically, fearing the worst. But the child returned the next morning, unharmed and carrying a small, intricately carved wooden figure. He claimed that a woman with green eyes had guided him back, warning him to stay on the path and respect the forest. The villagers recognized this as a manifestation of one of the spirits, perhaps the Leshy or another guardian. This event reinforced the importance of their rituals and respect for the forest. The villagers continued their practices, teaching the younger generations the stories and ceremonies that kept the spirits at peace. They understood that their survival was intertwined with the forest's well-being, and they embraced their role as its stewards. In time, the village became known for its harmony with nature. Travelers came to learn from their practices, and the forest flourished under their care. The spirits, once forgotten, now thrived in the collective memory and daily life of the people. Gareth, once a solitary figure seeking answers, became a revered leader, guiding his community through the delicate dance of coexistence with the ancient, enigmatic forces of the forest. The forest had always been a place of mystery and reverence for the villagers. They had long respected the spirits that dwelled within, offering tributes and conducting rituals to maintain harmony. Among these spirits, the Leshy, a Slavic forest guardian, and Nong Ta Kian, a Thai tree spirit, held significant influence. The villagers' interactions with these entities were rooted in ancient traditions passed down through generations. The Leshy, known for his shape-shifting abilities and deep connection to the forest, was both protector and trickster. He could lead travelers astray or guide them safely, depending on their respect for the forest's sanctity. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweets were customary to appease him. Shepherds would perform rituals, such as sitting on a fallen birch tree and presenting gifts, to seek his favor in protecting their herds. Nong Ta Kian, on the other hand, was a female spirit inhabiting the Hopia odorata tree. She was revered in Thai culture with offerings of brocade and incense made to honor her. Disturbing her tree without proper rituals could invoke her wrath, leading to misfortune. In modern times, she is often associated with granting lottery numbers, attracting worshippers seeking luck. The villagers, understanding the importance of these spirits, maintained their rituals diligently. They taught their children the stories and customs, ensuring the traditions endured. However, as time passed and external influences grew, some began to question these practices. Modernization and skepticism crept into the community, leading to a decline in ritual observance. One day, a group of developers arrived, proposing to build a resort near the sacred forest. They dismissed the villagers' concerns about the spirits, viewing them as mere superstitions. Despite protests, construction began, and the ancient trees, including those believed to house spirits, were cut down. Soon after, misfortunes plagued the project. Workers reported eerie occurrences, tools disappearing, strange noises at night, and a pervasive sense of unease. Some fell ill without explanation, and accidents became frequent. The developers, initially dismissive, grew anxious. The villagers, witnessing these events, saw them as signs of the spirit's displeasure. They approached the developers, offering to conduct rituals to appease the disturbed entities. Desperate, the developers agreed. A grand ceremony was organized, combining elements from both Slavic and Thai traditions. Offerings were made, chants were sung, and prayers were offered to seek forgiveness and restore balance. The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive feeling lifted, and peace returned. The developers, humbled by the experience, altered their plans to preserve the sacred areas. They collaborated with the villagers to create a cultural center, educating visitors about the forest spirits and the importance of respecting nature. The village thrived, blending tradition with modernity, and the spirits, once again honored, watched over the land. The tale served as a reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation and the enduring power of ancient beliefs. The forest, once a sanctuary of harmony and reverence, now pulsed with an unsettling energy. The villagers, having rekindled their bond with the guardian spirits, sensed a shift, an undercurrent of unease that permeated the air. Gareth, the village's spiritual leader, felt it too. The rituals that once brought peace now seemed insufficient, as if the spirits demanded more than mere acknowledgement. Determined to restore balance, Gareth delved deeper into the ancient texts and oral traditions. He discovered that the Leshy, the Slavic forest guardian, was not a solitary entity, but part of a complex hierarchy of spirits, each with distinct roles and expectations. The Leshy, known for his shape-shifting abilities and deep connection to the forest, was both protector and trickster. He could lead travelers astray or guide them safely, depending on their respect for the forest's sanctity. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweets were customary to appease him. Shepherds would perform rituals such as sitting on a fallen birch tree and presenting gifts to seek his favor in protecting their herds. Simultaneously, Gareth explored the lore of Nang Ta Kian, the Thai tree spirit inhabiting the Hopea odorata tree. She was revered in Thai culture, with offerings of brocade and incense made to honor her. Disturbing her tree without proper rituals could invoke her wrath, leading to misfortune. In modern times, she is often associated with granting lottery numbers, attracting worshippers seeking luck. Gareth realized that the forest was a tapestry of spirits, each with its own desires and rituals. To maintain harmony, the village would need to honor them all. They began to map the forest, marking sacred trees and groves, and assigning caretakers to each site. Offerings varied. Some spirits preferred food, others trinkets or songs, but the intent was always the same: respect and remembrance. As the villagers deepened their connection with the forest, they noticed changes. The crops grew more robust, animals returned to the area, and the air felt cleaner, more vibrant. The spirits, once restless, seemed appeased. Yet, Gareth remained vigilant, understanding that the balance was delicate and required constant attention. One night, a child from the village wandered into the forest and became lost. The villagers searched frantically, fearing the worst. But the child returned the next morning, unharmed and carrying a small, intricately carved wooden figure. He claimed that a woman with green eyes had guided him back, warning him to stay on the path and respect the forest. The villagers recognized this as a manifestation of one of the spirits, perhaps the Leshy or another guardian. This event reinforced the importance of their rituals and respect for the forest. The villagers continued their practices, teaching the younger generations the stories and ceremonies that kept the spirits at peace. They understood that their survival was intertwined with the forest's well-being, and they embraced their role as its stewards. In time, the village became known for its harmony with nature. Travelers came to learn from their practices, and the forest flourished under their care. The spirits, once forgotten, now thrived in the collective memory and daily life of the people. Gareth, once a solitary figure seeking answers, became a revered leader, guiding his community through the delicate dance of coexistence with the ancient, enigmatic forces of the forest. The tale served as a reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation, and the enduring power of ancient beliefs. The forest had always been a place of mystery and reverence for the villagers. They had long respected the spirits that dwelled within, offering tributes and conducting rituals to maintain harmony. Among these spirits, the Leshy, a Slavic forest guardian, and Nang Ta Kian, a Thai tree spirit, held significant influence. The villagers' interactions with these entities were rooted in ancient traditions, passed down through generations. The Leshy, known for his shape-shifting abilities and deep connection to the forest, was both protector and trickster. He could lead travelers astray or guide them safely, depending on their respect for the forest's sanctity. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweets were customary to appease him. Shepherds would perform rituals, such as sitting on a fallen birch tree and presenting gifts to seek his favor in protecting their herds. Nang Ta Kian, on the other hand, was a female spirit inhabiting the Hopea odorata tree. She was revered in Thai culture, with offerings of brocade and incense made to honor her. Disturbing her tree without proper rituals could invoke her wrath, leading to misfortune. In modern times, she is often associated with granting lottery numbers, attracting worshippers seeking luck. The villagers, understanding the importance of these spirits, maintained their rituals diligently. They taught their children the stories and customs, ensuring the traditions endured. However, as time passed and external influences grew, some began to question these practices. Modernization and skepticism crept into the community, leading to a decline in ritual observance. One day, a group of developers arrived, proposing to build a resort near the sacred forest. They dismissed the villagers' concerns about the spirits, viewing them as mere superstitions. Despite protests, construction began, and the ancient trees, including those believed to house spirits, were cut down. Soon after, misfortunes plagued the project. Workers reported eerie occurrences, tools disappearing, strange noises at night, and a pervasive sense of unease. Some fell ill without explanation, and accidents became frequent. The developers, initially dismissive, grew anxious. The villagers, witnessing these events, saw them as signs of the spirit's displeasure. They approached the developers, offering to conduct rituals to appease the disturbed entities. Desperate, the developers agreed. A grand ceremony was organized, combining elements from both Slavic and Thai traditions. Offerings were made, chants were sung, and prayers were offered to seek forgiveness and restore balance. The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive feeling lifted, and peace returned. The developers, humbled by the experience, altered their plans to preserve the sacred areas. They collaborated with the villagers to create a cultural center, educating visitors about the forest spirits and the importance of respecting nature. The village thrived, blending tradition with modernity, and the spirits, once again honored, watched over the land. The tale served as a reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation and the enduring power of ancient beliefs. The forest had always been a place of mystery and reverence for the villagers. They had long respected the spirits that dwelled within, offering tributes and conducting rituals to maintain harmony. Among these spirits, the Leshi, a Slavic forest guardian, and Nangtakian, a Thai tree spirit, held significant influence. The villagers' interactions with these entities were rooted in ancient traditions, passed down through generations. The Leshi, known for his shape-shifting abilities and deep connection to the forest, was both protector and trickster. He could lead travelers astray or guide them safely, depending on their respect for the forest's sanctity. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweets were customary to appease him. Shepherds would perform rituals, such as sitting on a fallen birch tree and presenting gifts to seek his favor in protecting their herds. Nangtakian, on the other hand, was a female spirit inhabiting the Hopea odorata tree. She was revered in Thai culture with offerings of brocade and incense made to honor her. Disturbing her tree without proper rituals could invoke her wrath, leading to misfortune. In modern times, she is often associated with granting lottery numbers, attracting worshippers seeking luck. The villagers, understanding the importance of these spirits, maintained their rituals diligently. They taught their children the stories and customs, ensuring the traditions endured. However, as time passed and external influences grew, some began to question these practices. Modernization and skepticism crept into the community, leading to a decline in ritual observance. One day, a group of developers arrived, proposing to build a resort near the sacred forest. They dismissed the villagers' concerns about the spirits, viewing them as mere superstitions. Despite protests, construction began, and the ancient trees, including those believed to house spirits, were cut down. Soon after, misfortunes plagued the project. Workers reported eerie occurrences, tools disappearing, strange noises at night, and a pervasive sense of unease. Some fell ill without explanation, and accidents became frequent. The developers, initially dismissive, grew anxious. The villagers, witnessing these events, saw them as signs of the spirit's displeasure. They approached the developers, offering to conduct rituals to appease the disturbed entities. Desperate, the developers agreed. A grand ceremony was organized, combining elements from both Slavic and Thai traditions. Offerings were made, chants were sung, and prayers were offered to seek forgiveness and restore balance. The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive feeling lifted, and peace returned. The developers, humbled by the experience, altered their plans to preserve the sacred areas. They collaborated with the villagers to create a cultural center, educating visitors about the forest spirits and the importance of respecting nature. The village thrived, blending tradition with modernity, and the spirits, once again honored, watched over the land. The tale served as a reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation, and the enduring power of ancient beliefs. The forest had always been a place of mystery and reverence for the villagers. They had long respected the spirits that dwelled within, offering tributes and conducting rituals to maintain harmony. Among these spirits, the Leshi, a Slavic forest guardian, and Nangtakian, a Thai tree spirit, held significant influence. The villagers' interactions with these entities were rooted in ancient traditions passed down through generations. The Leshy, known for his shape-shifting abilities and deep connection to the forest, was both protector and trickster. He could lead travelers astray or guide them safely, depending on their respect for the forest's sanctity. Offerings of bread, salt, and sweets were customary to appease him. Shepherds would perform rituals, such as sitting on a fallen birch tree and presenting gifts, to seek his favor in protecting their herds. Nongtakian, on the other hand, was a female spirit inhabiting the Hopia odorata tree. She was revered in Thai culture with offerings of brocade and incense made to honor her. Disturbing her tree without proper rituals could invoke her wrath, leading to misfortune. In modern times, she is often associated with granting lottery numbers, attracting worshippers seeking luck. The villagers, understanding the importance of these spirits, maintained their rituals diligently. They taught their children the stories and customs, ensuring the traditions endured. However, as time passed and external influences grew, some began to question these practices. Modernization and skepticism crept into the community, leading to a decline in ritual observance. One day, a group of developers arrived, proposing to build a resort near the sacred forest. They dismissed the villagers' concerns about the spirits, viewing them as mere superstitions. Despite protests, construction began, and the ancient trees, including those believed to house spirits, were cut down. Soon after, misfortunes plagued the project. Workers reported eerie occurrences, tools disappearing, strange noises at night, and a pervasive sense of unease. Some fell ill without explanation, and accidents became frequent. The developers, initially dismissive, grew anxious. The villagers witnessing these events saw them as signs of the spirits' displeasure. They approached the developers, offering to conduct rituals to appease the disturbed entities. Desperate, the developers agreed. A grand ceremony was organized, combining elements from both Slavic and Thai traditions. Offerings were made, chants were sung, and prayers were offered to seek forgiveness and restore balance. The atmosphere shifted, the oppressive feeling lifted, and peace returned. The developers, humbled by the experience, altered their plans to preserve the sacred areas. They collaborated with the villagers to create a cultural center, educating visitors about the forest spirits and the importance of respecting nature. The village thrived, blending tradition with modernity, and the spirits, once again honored, watched over the land. The tale served as a reminder of the delicate balance between progress and preservation and the enduring power of ancient beliefs. Before we dim the lights and let the echoes of this story settle into your thoughts, take a moment with us. If this tale stirred something in you, curiosity, wonder, maybe even a chill, drop a comment below. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what part of the story kept you on the edge of your seat. Was it the Leshy's tricks, the haunting silence before the storm, or that eerie moment the forest answered back? Your thoughts help us grow this community of nighttime adventurers who dare to listen a little closer, dream a little deeper. And hey, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss the next shadowy tale we have in store. New stories are whispered every night, and trust me, you won't want to miss tomorrow's. So for now, rest easy. Let the forest fade into dreams. Thanks for staying with us until the end. Until next time, good night. Sleep tight, and we'll see you in the next strange and magical chapter.